Tonight, Harley Quinn comes face to face with the Red Tool, which I would call a parody character if he weren't so creatively bankrupt. Marv Wolfman assumes that nobody would notice if he just muscled his way in and started writing Cyborg. And he's correct. And Batgirl has decided to devote its final 2 issues to Gotham Academy. Apologies to everyone who was here for Batgirl. All that and more tonight on the not-so-new 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 243 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and going to keep things brief up top this episode because I have 16 and or 17 comics, depending on how you count the Katana Deadshot comic, whether or not that's 2 or 1. But yeah, it's a packed episode. There's a lot going on. You can probably tell by the length of it. I didn't do a good job of keeping it brief. So we'll just jump right in. I will give you the list of comics in alphabetical order. Not the way I'm covering it on the show, but that's what the description is for. So we have in alphabetical order Batgirl, Batman, Black Canary, Cyborg, Deathstroke, Grayson, Harley Quinn, Justice League 3001, Omega Men, Sinister Six, Secret Six, Sinestro, Suicide Squad Most Wanted, Deadshot and Katana, Superman / Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, and We Are Robin. I think the only one out of that I really want to point out is the Superman Wonder Woman, which is the continuation of the Final Days of Superman arc, and is also the first one I'll be covering in this episode, so don't really have to go farther from that. Beyond that, I mean, you got a Dark Side War, you got the final Scott Snyder Batman issue, all that stuff is going to be at the top of the hour, and then at the end of the hour, I've still got another hour, so stay tuned for that, I guess. But for now, let's get into it with the Final Days of Superman. Superman Wonder Woman number 28, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Ed Beans. So last issue was, I believe, Action Comics. Superman went off to rescue Supergirl, told her, hey, you're going to be in charge of things for a while here. And then Wonder Woman showed up and said, excuse me, did you forget to tell somebody? And so we pick up immediately there. Wonder Woman walks into the Fortress of Solitude and it's just like, did you tell literally everybody else? Like, I just spoke to Batman. He told me about it because he figured you would have already told me about it. And Kara's like, I'm going to go. Good talk. We'll see you later. So she flies off. And Wonder Woman's like, look, it's whatever. Let's work on finding you a cure. There's got to be something here in this fortress. And he's like, hey, I already did all that. Like, I definitely did. You got to trust me. I'm losing this battle. It ain't going to be something we can get figured out here. And she basically is like, okay, well, why didn't you tell me? Like, why am I the last to find out? And he's like, because this is the most difficult one for me. Like, I'm working up to it. And it wouldn't have seemed real until the moment I had to tell you. And, you know, they share a little moment. They're getting in close with each other. And Wonder Woman points out, yeah, we've had a rough couple of months. Obviously, we're not sure of our relationship status at this point. But, Clark, big question, do you love me? And they share another kiss here. And almost immediately they're interrupted by Justice League comms and other stuff like that. And they're all made aware that there was an attack at the Daily Planet by the Solar Superman, and now it's being held at Argus. So both of them are like, yeah, all right, well, we're on our way. So they fly over. Steve Trevor's there waiting like, hey, both of you arriving at the same time? That's a little weird. And then she's like, yeah, totally weird. Anyway, what's going on here with this Daily Planet stuff? And as they're going down to an underground bunker area where it's being held, Steve notices that Clark, he's still got a little kryptonite poisoning under the collar, and he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. It's all good. So as they make their way down, they come across this other Superman who, again, 100% believes he's Clark Kent, 100% believes he's Superman, and he's telling him, like, how dare you keep me down here? People are dying out there. Superman needs to be out to save them. And both Clark and Diana point out, he looks exactly the same way I did during my solar flare power, during my fight with Ulysses, during Geoff Johns' run. And we get a little flashback to that. We show, you know, Ulysses survived. He's also being held in Argus and all that. And just like, okay, well, if this is something related to solar flare, is Ulysses still under control? And he's like, yeah, he's down on the floor beneath us. He's totally secure, like no problems with that. And so Superman and Wonder Woman step forward, start asking this guy questions, and he immediately lashes out. I'm just like, you're a fraud. You're an imposter wearing my family's crest and colors, you bastard. And he's like, all right, well, this guy's got some issues. I'm going to go down and talk to Ulysses, because if this is something to do with my solar flare ability, he's going to be the only one who's, like, survived it. So, as Clark goes away to go talk to Ulysses, Wonder Woman's left standing there, and the Solar Superman's just like, I thought you loved me, Diana. I thought all that stuff. And Steve is like, wow, all right, this is deeply personal. So, yeah, Superman goes to talk to Ulysses, and his real name's Neil. They call him Neil. I'm just going to call him Ulysses. And he's being held under some form of red sun radiation, but like something that affects him, whatever. And as they are continuing to watch Solar Superman, like trying to break out of his cage, it seems like he's getting more and more angry and more powerful. So they're sitting on that. However, Ulysses, Clark comes up and is just like, so, when I used my solar flare on you, did it have any strange physiological effects on you? And Ulysses is like, well, yeah, I guess you could say that, considering, you know, I almost died. And he's like, look, I'm not playing games, I'm not doing whatever. But at that moment, Solar Superman breaks out of containment. Immediately, Wonder Woman and Steve are trying to contain him again, but it causes such a massive power fluctuation in the place that the thing containing Ulysses also goes down, and he's just like, all right, well, time to have some fun. And so he starts beating up Superman. Wonder Woman's beating up Solar Superman. It's just a whole thing. Ulysses notes, like, wait a minute, hold on, I fought you before, and you aren't, like, you're weak. You're barely doing anything. This is pathetic. Like, what's even going on here? And as Wonder Woman finally manages to knock Solar Superman away, it looks like he escapes up and out of the Argus facility. So he's now out. But Wonder Woman comes to help Superman because she realizes, oh, there was a power outage. Like, he's now in danger. He's basically, Superman tells him, like, look, what you did to me, you're paying for your crime against the world. Like, this is what it has to be. And he's like, oh, well, I'm not sure about that. But then he just starts laughing. And as Wonder Woman busts in the room, Ulysses is like, haha, well, we don't even need to continue our fight anymore because I put it all together. Superman's gonna die. Tee-hee. And then the lights come up. So, you know, just kind of a little, hey, remember this from the run? Remember when we did this? Which, fair. I mean, if we want to pull back from that, fair enough. I mean, it's... I say fair enough, and yet it is my least favorite part of the book. You know, like, the stuff of talking to Wonder Woman, fine. The stuff with going to Argus and talking to Solar Superman, also fine. We're getting more interest on that. The Neil/Ulysses stuff just feels so out of place. It feels so, like, are we really going back to that? You know, like, why? If we're going back to that, why not go back to, like, part of Lobdell's run, you know? Why not go back to the beginning of the New 52? Like, why are we going specifically to him? The answer is because they're making this half-hearted solar flare attempt to equivocate here, which, frankly, I don't feel like it does. I feel like you say, oh, he looks just like I did with solar flare, but he doesn't. He, he's giving off some amount of energy, but, like, he doesn't look like you did. It's, maybe that's an art thing. Maybe that's not, maybe it's intentionally trying to be that way, but it just doesn't. I don't know. Regardless, I don't feel like the issue lands on a point where it's any more interesting than the last issue was. If anything, it feels less interesting because it more or less returned to the status quo of, like, 2 issues ago, except now everyone knows that Superman is dying. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll give it a 7. I feel like this event has been decent for a while now, but this is just kind of like okay, are we having to stretch this out to the full 8 parts? Does it not naturally fill that gap? And I'm thinking this is going to be, hopefully, the slowest part of the story. Justice League number 49, written by Geoff Johns, art by Jason Fabok. So, Yeah, last issue, technically issue 48 was the last issue, but then we had the Darkseid War special in between all that. Not a lot. It's just kind of extraneous. All you need to know is that Cyborg is in the power ring along with Jessica Cruz. So this issue picks up with Lex Luthor, who's been empowered with the powers of Darkseid. He shows up and he's like, I'm the heir to Darkseid. I'm going to kick your ass, Mobius, because that's what I should have done to begin with. And so he fires off like Omega Beams and all this other stuff. And Wonder Woman's watching on, just being like, this is not a good development. Like, this is insane that this is even happening. But at the very least, it also isn't good because Lex is forcing himself to be separate here. He's working on his own. We all need to work together if we're going to take out Mobius. And that's when we are reminded that the Crime Syndicate has shown up. They're working here. And Superwoman is in labor. So Owlman's just like, hey, look, get away from Superwoman. We'll deal with all this. And then, like, it's fine. We're going to be fine. And Grid makes the point of saying that delivery is imminent and the Messiah is coming. So when Wonder Woman points out, like, hey, she's in the middle of a battlefield about to give birth, and Owlman's just like, yeah, that's the point. This is going to be really big deal in a minute. So we see the fight between Mobius and Lex is going on. The Parademons come in, and of course they're under Lex's command, so they try to attack Mobius. He just immediately kills them, and he's like, these things don't even care if they die. I only care about suffering. I want people to suffer. To which point Lex is like, I can make that happen, and he just pile drives them into the ground. We then cut back over to the Crime Syndicate, who... there is a lettering, a text speech issue here where pretty much all the evil characters speak with black speech bubbles, yet for some reason Wonder Woman is given black speech bubbles as well. It was confusing immediately because I couldn't tell, like, is this supposed to be Superwoman? But she's saying things like, get away, Crime Syndicate. But regardless, Batman comes up and is like, hey, the chair told me that Owlman's, the weapon that he's talking about using against Mobius is the baby. They're going to use the baby to attack Mobius. So Wonder Woman gets blasted away by Power Ring, and yeah, they're just hoping to have the baby come out soon. And when Superwoman's like, hey, wait, Owlman, like, it's not your baby, but please don't hurt it. And he's like, why would I hurt it? I need it for my goals. So inside of the Power Ring, we see Cyborg and Jessica Cruz talking. She's like, hey, what are you doing in here? And he's like, I downloaded my consciousness in here. I thought it would help. Now that we're done with the special, I'm not entirely sure I have a plan out of here, so whoopsie. Then we cut back to the Lex fight. It's a cool fight. Anti-Monitor sends his shadow being things after Lex. The Green Lantern Corps, they're still buzzing around. They're taking out the shadow things. We go to Mr. Miracle and Barda. And Mr. Miracle's like, hey, that guy, Lex, is on our side. We need to help him. To which Barda says, that guy's the new Darkseid. Screw him. There's nobody on Apocalypse right now defending, like, stopping us from freeing all the slaves. We can just help all of them if we just bail right now and go do that. And Mr. Miracle's like, no, we need to help that. This planet's important. We got to help this planet. And then the Justice League will help us because they're all super cool and chill. To which Barda's like, you sure about that? Like, that's a big ask. And Mr. Miracle's like, I need you to trust me. I love you. And she's like, I love you too. And then she bails. She boom tubes out and leaves Mr. Miracle all alone. So, yeah, the fight is continuing on. Superman and Wonder Woman are trying to help out by fighting Mobius as well. And Batman points out to Superman, hey, your body's breaking down because of the fire pit's radiation that's currently fueling you. And Superman's like, yeah, no shit, I'm gonna get rid of it. And so it looks like he does a solar flare, which should leave him completely powerless, but I guess so he expels all of the energy. He gets blasted away by Mobius. So now he's down out of the fight. Lex comes up and he's like, look, now that I finally have true power, I'm on the same level as you are, Superman. I don't understand why you always held back. Were you afraid of the power? Or was that it? Were you just trying to, like, was it a political line, an ethical line? And Superman's like, I think you're projecting, Lex. And he's like, maybe not. And then Flash, who is, of course, the Black Racer at this point, shows up and is like, guys, I can't move because the Black Racer is having me wait until death happens. And death is like right about to happen. So Mobius gets back up. He's ready to attack Lex. He's doing the whole thing. He's like, oh, if you're the heir to the dark side, you're going to die the same way. And then Grail pops in. And Grail, during the special, of course, had her own plans, her own machinations. That's where Black Racer Flash is like, oh, Grail's back. We all should run. We all should get out of here. So the crime syndicate's preparing for the baby again. They're doing their things. Grid points out that Grail walked in and they're bringing along someone else who has unclear power levels. And Batman pings the chair and sees, oh, Superwoman had her baby. It's a boy. And then we get the 9-panel grid that like wraps up the sort of stories where everyone's freaking out. Everyone's doing their thing. Grail brings in Steve Trevor, who's embedded with some level of dark side energy as well. And he just comes in and blasts the ever-loving shit out of the Anti-Monitor. And the Anti-Monitor is dead. It is a skull and bones. There is nothing left of it. So now Wonder Woman looks on and is like, oh, okay, everything just changed because now the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid are dead. But Grail just showed up with the Darkseid power Steve Trevor. So that can't be good. That's the issue. Obviously, it wraps up in a big old issue 50. Later. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not like it's a horrible issue, anything like that. It just, this story, Darkseid War, I said somewhere around parts like 4 and 5, it felt padded. It felt like, okay, we're just taking our time. This is going on forever doing that. We had a special issue on top of all that, which now getting back into this part of the story feels especially extraneous. Like the only thing that needed to happen was Steve Trevor gets Darkseid powers. You could have done that at any point in the earlier issues, but fair enough, put it in a special. Now that we finally got here, now that we finally got to this point where it's like, all right, the next chapter is the final chapter, I feel like we're sprinting. I feel like it's someone who realized that their paper's due in 5 minutes and they're like, oh crap, and they're typing it out as fast as possible. Like, all of this stuff is happening and it feels so rushed compared to the earlier pacing of the story. I don't know, maybe it was a note. I'm happy that it is faster, but I didn't want it to be this fast. I didn't want it to be just non-stop, wall-to-wall, like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then Steve Trevor kills Anti-Monitor, but then something else is going to happen. Like, okay, you can take a breath. So yeah, art's great. I really don't have any faults on that. Even the dialogue's also good. It's just the pacing, like, of the story overall. This issue isn't even that bad. It's just with the larger story. So, I don't know. I'll give it a 7.5. I think it doesn't quite get to great for me, but it is still good, especially when you're including the art in that, which of course you do. So, 7.5, but it's got a lot of asterisk on that. Batman number 51, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. So, next issue, issue 52, is the last issue, but this is the last one that was written by Scott Snyder. So it effectively is the final issue of Batman. After all the Bloom stuff happened, we open back up in this, we're down in the Batcave, and there's the narration going over top of this whole story, which is going back to like issue 1 of this book, which is the Gotham Is column in the Gotham Gazette or whatever it is, where they have people write in and say, here's what Gotham is. And Gotham is Batman was always like a big thing. So it opens up with this. It says like Gotham is a black page, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through each of them as it comes up unless it's relevant, but we go back into the Batcave, and we see Alfred is giving Bruce a slushie or something like that, some sort of shake, and he's like, yes, this is what you need to keep up your crime fighting and all that. And they crack some jokes back and forth. It seems like Bruce is in a pretty good spot. Alfred has his hand back, which they joke is like just a spare hand from the closet, and it just got sewn on by Crazy Quilt. Sure. But he starts putting on all of his gear, and Alfred's like, wait, hold on, stop. And he looks at Bruce's body and notices it doesn't have any scars on it. Post all of the stuff with the Dionysus and all that, it's completely clean. And he's like, I don't want you to go out there and be Batman. I wish that you didn't have to. And Bruce is like, but I gotta. To which point Alfred says, yeah, he's lying. He doesn't gotta. So they go out into the car. Alfred points out, like, there's no one on the streets. Like, it's totally empty. Like, you could just go out in your normal Batmobile, because he goes through some camo options to start with. But as soon as he's like, oh, okay, fine. So he goes out in the Batmobile. All of a sudden, there's a loud rumbling noise. And then the whole city just blacks out. And immediately he's like, all right, this is an attack. We gotta fight against it. We've got to hit up the main things. Let me go talk to Jim Gordon. This is important here. So he meets up with Gordon on top of the GCPD. Of course, the signal still works. It's on a backup generator. And Gordon, who is now completely back to his old self, no longer is acting as Batman. He's sitting there saying, like, all right, well, we got some word that Arkham is under, all the inmates are starting to break out, so we're going to be sending armed guards there. Of course, you'll already be on the way by the time I turned around, and of course he is. So we go to Arkham, and much like issue 1 again, we see that there's a breakout attempt. This time it's got Clayface, Bane, Killer Croc, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Riddler, and Scarecrow. And as they're about to start breaking out, all of a sudden some laser beam bars of some sort come down, and Batman's like, oh, okay, new security stuff. To which we see, I think it's Jeremiah Arkham? They never officially name him, but he's like, yes, I'm back as the asylum's director, and I put in the security measures, so everything's fine. Don't worry about it, Batman. We got it under control. So he's still looking for a reason as to what caused the blackout. We go down to the underground of Gotham because they realize that whatever it was that caused this, it isn't terrestrial. Like, so it isn't just a normal earthquake or something like that. So we go down underground and we see the Court of Owls, and we see this boat coming up, and there's a little model city of Gotham, and some old lady in an owl mask taps one of the buildings, to which a hologram projector comes up, and a bunch of owl masks are like, you are not welcome. And they're like, what? No, but like, isn't this the mantling? The mantling, this is how it was said to be started. I thought we're doing the thing. And they're like, no, we're doing a thing called the Strigidae, whatever. Yeah, the blackout isn't us. It is the start of the plan, don't get me wrong, but we're not ready yet, so this isn't us. So just be on the ready. And then the other owls are like, well, damn, all right, well, if the Strigidae are almost ready, should we just take them? Should we just do the thing? To which point the old lady starts punching the other owls in the face. Turns out it's Bruce under heavy makeup. So he's like, all right, well, it wasn't them. So we see Batman sneaking around town, spies on Penguin, who's talking with Black Mask. They're saying, like, oh, we should launch our plan. And Penguin's like, soon, but not tonight. And he's like, all right, so it wasn't them. We go over to the mysterious man who is probably Joker, but has amnesia, sitting on a bench. And he swats a fly on his neck. And he says, nope, not tonight. And Batman just looks over the city. He's like, I don't know what's causing this. This is annoying me. It's been like all night and I can't figure out what's causing this blackout. And more importantly, nothing has happened. So eventually he looks through a window and he sees a shadow there. And he's like, all right, it's something. So he goes inside. We see that there's a fire, a bunch of papers there, and this man's running out the door. And Batman comes in and just stops him. And he's stealing a laptop or something like that. So Batman tells him put it down. And he's like, hey, look, it's my laptop. You don't got to do with that. They run facial rec. This guy has a record a mile long. And he's like, oh, yeah, you probably, you can see all my crimes and stuff like that in your face. Yeah, back during issue like 2 of this series, I was in the Whisper Gang, where you magnetized all of our faces to stick to a train that passes by. I turned my life around after that. I went to school, I finished my degree, I did all this stuff, and now I work at the Gotham Gazette doing the Gotham Is column. That's my thing, and when the power went down, I've never missed an upload, so I was hoping to come in here and do a backup generator. Caused a small fire, sorry about that, but ultimately, can I just do that? Can I upload my paper thing? And Batman's like, yeah, sure, stay in school. So he goes off, and that's where we get the big thing of the Gotham Is column here, where he's basically saying, and Batman, I can hope you're reading this, because after all these times of Gotham Is, I want you to know that it's historically been bad. It's historically been that Gotham is like people suffering and bad things and all this stuff. They were dark and hopeless and all this other things. But lately, over the years that you've been active, it's been on the upswing. People are starting to have better stories. They're starting to enjoy life here in Gotham. Things are not as miserable as they historically were. And the Gotham Is writer specifically tells Batman, hopefully one night you can just take a night off, that nothing happens that requires you to come in and do whatever, that Gotham is quiet. And we see a few things of like people just enjoying their time and like hanging out with family, doing whatever. And then Alfred comes over the comms and Batman's just on a gargoyle. He's like, "You're not going to believe this, sir, but like, I guess it was just a natural occurrence. I guess it was just an earthquake. Like, don't worry about it because the power's coming back on any second now." And then it all boots back up just as the sun rises. And Batman's like, "All right, well, I'm still going to be here just in case." And it ends with, really in the end, the answer to the question the column poses is simple. It's what we say to you and what you say to us. Gotham is you always. And that's the end of Scott Snyder's Batman, right up until he does All-Star Batman in like 3 weeks. Yeah, no, it's good. It's a solid issue. I really do not have a problem with it. It's definitely a capstone. It's definitely calling back to all the like very beginning stuff. It does that very well. No issues there. Yeah, I really don't have that much of a problem with it. I mean, it's definitely just an epilogue. It's definitely like, it's not doing anything plot-wise, but it's good to wrap this stuff up. We get Alfred's hand back. We point out a few things that have mildly changed over the course of the story, so there's something at least. Yeah, I'll easily say that this one is like somewhere in the 8s. I'll give it an 8.5 even. I think it's earned that at the very least, if only as the capstone to the run as a whole, and kind of a nostalgic look back. I think that's the proper way to end a series if you want to do a nostalgia look back, is still make it its own story, but you can do all of these callbacks throughout the story and make it its own thing as well. So yeah, 8.5. The Omega Men number 11, written by Tom King, art by Barnaby Bagenda. So last issue was the big old stuff of they are forcing the Viceroy and the Citadel at large to go to war with the entire Vega system rather than just Karna, and this issue is showing how that goes. So the last issue also had a lot of like skipping ahead, showing stuff through the war. This one has a little bit of that, but we primarily use this issue to show how do we get everyone in the Vega system on the same page. So we open up with each of the different members of the Omega Men going to their respective planets. Scraps is in charge of Shangri-Lin, which is where Brute was from. And they do some murdering. They do some straight up killing. Except for Kyle, who goes back to the planet Hinks, which is where he met up with the guy who got him like the hollow stuff so they could take the planet off. And as he's there, he's like, "Hey, the Citadel's sending their entire army. I'm going to need you to get me every single one of the mercenaries and crazy stuff like that. We're going to need to unite and get the biggest army we can against the Citadel's entire force." And he's like, "Yeah? And how do you expect to pay for that? Like, that's a massive fee. There's no way I can possibly do that for anything less than..." And then Kyle pulls out of his pocket the last sample of Stellarium and is like, "Yep, this is enough to save a planet. You can have this, sell it for what you will. It'll cause a massive bidding war, but it'll only if I can get all of the armies underneath my command." To which point he calls off to his secretary and is like, "Get me 126 billion credits and call all the Merc armies. We're going to war." And he looks at Kyle and is like, "Is that all?" And he's like, "Well, actually." And then Kyle flies away, showing that he actually got his little wooden crucifix back as well, as he dropped that off in the previous issue. So then we go to Scraps, who is on the Shangri-Lin planet, which of course is the religious order. And she's just shooting people. She's going nuts with just killing. And the Pope character's like, oh, you are being damned. You are sinning against Alpha and Omega. To which Scraps is like, well, you know what? I once had a friend that you called a sinner, and I really like that guy. So I don't think I'm being a sinner or a saint here. I think I am being brute. And all you don't care about sin or Alpha and Omega. You just care about your money and power. You care about having this position. But I'm about to blow your brains out. And what is your money and power going to do for you then, huh? To which point he's like, oh yeah, you are being brute, because obviously brute was very anti-corruption. So we see that the Pope basically steps out in front of his entire planet and says, we must launch a holy crusade against the Citadel. It is a great evil coming to attack us. We will be prevailing. May it please Omega. And Scraps is in the back like, yes, may it please Omega. Then we go to Tigor on Karna. And he's talking to somebody who's basically saying, like, you're not going to survive this. You were raised in the lap of luxury by colonizers. You were raised by the guy who you were sent to kill. Like, you don't have the underlying gruff that is necessary. Now, your father, he did. He was raised in the jungle. He had to fight for everything he had. He managed to take control of the tribe by going through the trials, which is essentially just kill a bunch of people. He managed to do that because he had the gruff, but you don't have that. To which point, all of this is over top of a huge fight. It's him slashing through tons of people. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I wasn't raised in the jungle. I was raised under a roof. And all that stuff that you said is true, except for one thing. You see, I'm alive and my father is dead. And that's because I'm the one who killed him. And we see that he's managed to come through, and now he's just leading all of his own people in the war against the Citadel. So then we go to Primus. And Primus's whole thing was nonviolence. And we see there's a security camera that he's forcing to feed to all the TVs on Egyptu. And he's like, hey, turn on the camera. Here we go. I got a message. My name is Primus. For years, I led peaceful revolution. I led resistance through sit-ins and hunger strikes and stuff like that. They beat me. They did horrible things to me. And every time I turned around and thanked them, because that's the right way to do it. You don't want to use violence. And I failed. It didn't work. I'm so sorry. And we see he shoots this guy just on camera right there. And he's like, you have to understand, in terms of change, in terms of like trying to make a change in the world, I still believe in nonviolence. I still think that's the way to go. But we're not talking about change. We're talking about how the Citadel is going to come here and slaughter all of us. And the only way we're going to survive that is by fighting back. So screw the nonviolence for now. Pick up a weapon and fight for your life, because it is genuinely on the line here. And we see all the people of the planet are turning around and they're just attacking Citadel members who are here. So then we go to Callista, who's on her home planet. I can't remember the name of it offhandedly. And panel one of this was she beheaded her father to claim the throne. Here we just pick up with that, where the little dude, the assistant guy there named Talim, she's just instructing him like, oh yes, I apologize for how I left you when all that happened. It's good to see that you're doing well. He's like, oh yes, I serve the throne, regardless of it being your father or you, whoever. I serve, and I care not for my own well-being. Don't worry about it. And he basically asks, what would you like me to do with your father's head? And she's like, isn't there a stake? Don't we usually put heads of people we kill on stakes outside on the west side of the castle? And he's like, traditionally, that's for the natives. That's not for our own people, the Brahmin people. And she's like, well, I don't particularly care for tradition, so put his head on the spike, but make sure you get the crown off it. And we see she's in front of all of her people being praised. Long live Callista. After that, we see she goes into the back and she's like, all right, we're going to have war with the Citadel, prepare the battalions. We're going to do whatever we can here. And as Talon walks away, he's like, oh, will you want your own traditional morning training? That thing we always had you do before? And she's like, no, I don't think so. I've changed. I'm not going to kill them because it's cruel to kill them. And I'm going to save all my fighting for the battlefield. And then we get the Omega War, which is a montage. It's like 3 to 4 pages of just showing the war across all the planets. The Viceroy is trying to get any of the planets to break, trying to get any of them to show a weak link so he can come in, kill the entire population, and use their planet for Stellarium. And it just keeps on failing. And I love this one thing of every time we cut back to one of the planets, it shows how they are doing their thing for like whatever cause it is. So for Callista, it's for our queen. For Tigor, it's for the tribe. For Egyptu, it's for peace. For whatever the religious planet was, for the gods. And then for the when it comes to the guy who was running the credits and like the merc armies, he says 4,000 credits. So anyway, it ends up with about 180 days into the war, half a year. The Omega Men have made their way to the Citadel homeworld. They come in and they're just talking about like, all right, this is it. Let's go and do what we need to do. We'll kill them all. We'll take success here. And Primus is like, hey, there's the possibility they might actually surrender. To which Callista says, yes, and that would be great. They can surrender, and we'll still kill them. That's the issue. Boy, oh boy. No, I love the series. The series is fantastic. There's no reason I can't believe look, if you ever need a reason to hate DC editorial of this period, there's thousands of reasons, but I'm going to go ahead and just make my second reason, my number 2 reason for it, is that they tried to cancel this book at issue number 6. My number 1 reason is they canceled Prez at issue number 6, but that's a whole different story. Yeah, no, this is I'll give it a 9. I really like it. I really, really do. It's a fantastic issue, fantastic book, and it's only building up to a fantastic finale. So hopefully, I mean, I know it sticks the landing, but I'll at least feign that I don't. Hopefully, it sticks the landing. Grayson, number 19, written by Jackson Lanzing and Colin Kelly, art by Roge Antonio. So last issue, it ended with Dr. Daedalus getting a new body, and I don't think I recognized who the body was because it looked a lot like one of them. Turns out it was actually in Helena's body. She was being used as the new shell, whatever you want to call it, for Dr. Daedalus's spirit. So this issue picks up with both of his daughters looking on, and they're just like, wait, what? And just like, yes, you see, none of you understood my master plan or whatever like that. And they're like, you said that one of us would be the vessel for your return. Why Helena Bertinelli? And just like, the Dr. Nets is like, this is all just a trick. He never wanted us to have any power. And, he basically says, look, you guys can still serve me in the upcoming cataclysm if you're up to it. And it's like, if we're up to it, like, we've never had a choice. So out on the battlefield, we see Grayson is still trying to get up to Helena, still trying to go save her. Tony's just like, hey, look, we got to go. Like, this has already gone foobar. Like, this is a whole problem. We can't handle this right now. But when Grayson realizes, hey, one of the assassins must have slipped past, Midnighter's like, nobody slipped past. Like, all this happened, she's gone. She's just already done. And that's where Tony points out, yeah, it's the return of Dr. Daedalus. Like, that's the true intent behind Spiral. And Grayson is shocked by this. So when we go back to the thing, we see that Daedalus is like, all right, well, I'm going to split. If either one of you want to come with me, you're welcome to. We're going to hold tryouts, wink, wink. And so it's Dr. Daedalus. It's weird. It's Helena's body. I'm just going to say she. She ends up leaving. And as she leaves, Luca is like, well, only one of us can come, and I want to work with Dad. So she pulls out a gun on Dr. Nets, and Nets is like, please, look, you don't have to. You can refuse him. That's what I'm doing. We don't have to do whatever he wants. We can be our own people. You can make the choice. When we go back out, Grayson is super pissed off with Tony because it seems like he knows a whole hell of a lot more than he's letting on here. And at that point, Midnighter's like, hey, Dick, I'm pretty sure Tony works for Checkmate because a giant-ass Checkmate ship comes out of the sky and just lands right next to them. Midnighter's like, all right, well, I think my part in here in the story's done. Bye. So he bails out. And Tony reveals, like, yeah, I'm with Checkmate. I always have been. Like, since issue 1, it's always been that. And we see Maxwell Lord is up inside and just like, all right, is Dr. Daedalus is making his gambit, or is it Helena's gambit? Like, we need to figure out what's up. kill the enemy and use the tracker to give chase. So Tony takes off to go do its thing, while Maxwell Lord is like, this is great. Spiral's taken down. Helena's off the board. This is exactly what I wanted here. So Tony takes off to go do whatever. We see Grayson's giving chase in the helicopter, and he's like, look, I don't know why you've been lying to us. And he's like, because we're spies. That's what we do. How dense are you that this has not always been the case? To which point he's like, look, I'm saving Helena, full stop. I suggest you eject off your jetpack. And he fires off some missiles, to which Tony somehow manages to shoot down the helicopter with just like a pistol. Grayson gets out, they fight on the top of it, and he's just like, oh, I've been playing this end game for so long, you don't even understand. All of it has all been part of Daedalus' plan, keeping watch for the end of the world, and we brought you on specifically to make sure that you were all tied up, to make sure that you couldn't interfere. To which Grayson says, that's where you made a mistake. I like being tied up. So at that point, he calls out Tony saying like, oh, looks like you're being sacrificed here. You're not as important of a piece as you think you are. But he's like, no, that's where you're misunderstanding. And he tosses Grayson off the jet and down seemingly into the water below. And Grayson had a parachute. So we then cut over to a secret Nazi train where Daedalus and Luca are both on there. And he's like, yes, my daughter, I'm happy that you joined me here. Surprised you managed to make it out, because you're not the smart one. You're the angry, cruel one. But, it was necessary. And she's like, yeah, why did you not make me the smart one? And he's like, oh, because it's what I do. I needed someone cruel in order to bend the world into my shape. And that's where she gets up. She's pissed. She pulls a gun at her father and just like, all right, well, tell me, how does it feel to be the helpless one for once? And he's like, don't know. And then he launches something which causes her to get a massive electric shock, and she's thrown over a bridge down into the waters below. So she's probably dead. We then see Tony and Grayson are going about their own things to both get a ride. Tony just hijacks a car from someone in Germany, whereas Dick seems to go to a secret Batcave in Belgium. And so they do a chase where he's on a motorcycle doing a thing. Basically, it's just them yelling at each other, where Tony's just like, oh, you're so devoted to the heroics, you don't understand, like, all of this, it's beyond us, it's much larger than any of us. And he's like, maybe, but I'm still going to save Helena, like, that's still going to happen, there is no other way. So he uses the sports car that Tony hijacked as a ramp, flies up, and then activates some rockets on it so he can fly off after wherever Daedalus is. Back in Spiral HQ, we see that Maxwell Lord has come into the main room where Luca Netz is. I say Luca Netz, I'm pretty sure it's Dr. Netz, but whatever, is bleeding out all over the ground. And he's just like, oh, hey, as long as you're dying here, I want the Minos file. I want the identities of all the different superheroes and all that other stuff. And then if you give it to me, I can try to help save your life here. And she's like, how could you possibly have known the name of that file, the Minos file? Like, that's an internal name only. So she's like, oh, I'm the one who installed Mr. Minos. Like, all of it. I don't think you understand. All of this, all of the Spiral was part of my plan. Like, it was all me. You were working for me. He was working for me. It was all me. So, yeah, that's what it was. But Netz is like, nope, screw that. Presses the button for deleting the archive and is just like, screw you. I'm nobody's pawn. I just moved to the last row on the board. I'm a queen now, bitch. To which she dies. We then go over to Secret Nazi Castle. And Grayson's snowmobiling up there, and we see yet again somehow Tony has managed to catch up, and they do another fight here in the middle, and he's like, man, I hate the fact that you made me like you, and Grayson's like, oh, you like me, buddy? That's why I don't want to do this. And he kicks Tony off of a cliff down into some snow below, and then like he's got a grenade launcher gun. And he's like, oh, what? You're going to, like, blow me up? He's like, no. You told me a long time ago, don't anticipate the explosion, cause the explosion. And he causes an avalanche. And as it's rushing towards Tony, he's just like, you think I'll stop? I'll get out of the snow. I'll still hunt you to the ends of the earth. And he's like, yeah, it's what I do. So he goes inside the castle, starts making his way down the stairway. The entire time, Daedalus is over the intercom saying like, oh, yes, you've chased me down this far, but you're still you're blinded by childlike heroics and all that stuff. I'm not a villain. I'm not even a man. I am the center of the spiral, the Leviathan, all that stuff. And as he makes his way down to the bottom of the stairs, he comes across Helena's body, Daedalus inside of it, and he says, I am your end. And that's that. Next issue being the quote-unquote final issue. There is an annual after that, but I don't think it really plays into anything else. Yeah, it's... Look, I appreciate the spycraft elements of it all. I appreciate the fact that it's doing the, like, no, this was actually my plan the whole time. No, this was my plan. Fine. I like it. It's perfectly fine. I just can't shake the feeling that I should have known more about Daedalus and Checkmate for that reason. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where back during the beginning of the New 52, it felt like there were certain things that you still should have known. It wasn't a full reboot. There were certain things that you needed to come in from the old continuity in order to fully understand things. And up to you whether or not you think that is good writing style, anything like that. But all of the Checkmate stuff and all of the Leviathan, Spiral, whatever else, I felt like I was supposed to come in with previous knowledge. And so when it's dropped here with such lack of dignity, lack of like any extra explanation, I can't help but feel like I'm left a little bit in the dark. All this Daedalus stuff, it's like, yes, of course, this was always his plan. We set this up long ago. It's like, did you? I don't recall. I don't think you did. So, I don't know. It's iffy there. I mean, this also is two writers, Lanzing and Kelly, coming in after King and Seeley. I don't know if they had the full picture or if they're forced to just come up with this ending on their own. I'd assume they were given some notes, but I can't be sure. So, it's a ball of fur that I don't want to try to untangle. I'm going to say... I'll still say an 8. It looks good. It reads well. It's probably not the best paced issue, but it's good. It's very well done. I don't dislike that much about it, except for just the larger thing it represents. So, yeah, take that for what you will. Cyborg number 10, written by Marv Wolfman, art by Ivan Reis, Felipe Watanabe, Daniel HDR, and Julio Ferreira. So you might notice the last issue, not being the end of the arc, was David F. Walker doing the writing. Marv Wolfman, one of the creators of Cyborg, if I remember correctly, is now here. Does that mean we just start a new arc? No, we wrap up the old one. We finish that up. So last issue, Cyborg got captured by the techno whatever government organization, and it was all part of his plan. We saw him planning with the Justice League to make that happen. This issue, we pick back up with the holographic mommy that he has, and they're at some sort of cabin, some sort of lake house, and he's like, oh yeah, I used to remember you and Dad bringing me here all the time and all this other stuff. They threw me in swimming and I took to it naturally. And she's like, oh, you always were athletic, you were great, like all that stuff happened. And we see he uses his new ability to like shapeshift his parts or whatever to make a fishing rod. And the mom's like, hey, you really should like get that checked out by the Cybertech company, because like Star Labs does a whole bunch of everything. Cybertech is very specific about cybernetics. To which point he's like, yeah, well, you know, they're not exactly the most up and up system right now because they're the ones that are used in that government program or whatever. But if you do it, it might also be able to help me. And he's like, how so? And she's like, oh, because maybe I can get put into a real body instead of being a hologram. That'd be nice. So Silas walks in. He's wearing his lab coat and all that because all of this is just a hologram. It's all just in the holodeck room. And we see Silas come in being like, oh, hey, honey, why don't you tell our son about the first time we came up to this cabin before he was born? Wink, wink. All the fun we got up to there. And we see Cyborg pulls out a freaking whale out of this lake. And he's like, yeah, this is great. Tell me about the story, Mom. And she's like, oh, my batteries are low. I gotta go through my memory banks. It's fine. I'll just step out. And at that point, Silas is like, that's suspicious. Why didn't you want to tell that story? It's a great story. To which Cyborg is like, hey, please don't go crazy. Like, you do this whenever you think you discover an anomaly or whatever. We literally don't even know how she became a hologram, so let's not poke that bear. Then we go over to the Justice League satellite and we see, I guess later, we're given no time cards on any of these things. Shazam's talking to the Justice League and is basically saying, hey, yeah, the plan worked out. Cyborg's in there. Like, we're going to be doing all that stuff. And they're trying to say that Cybertech, they were going to get in and analyze the computers, so Cyborg's going to do some like downloading of his own. And Batman points out to Shazam, hey, if he runs into trouble, you're going to help him out. So we then go back to Star Labs where Silas is talking to his wife again, Eleanor, and it's just like, hey, here's the thing. Why didn't you tell that story before? Like, why don't you tell me the story now? Like, everything's cool. Why don't we do that? Tell me about the cabin and all that other stuff. To which she's like, oh, I'm sorry. My memory's still downloading. It's all sparse. It's all whatever else. And they fixed it in the trade here, but I specifically remember that there was a problem with speech bubbles where she says, oh, my memory is blanking out. And then also immediately says, I understand. And it was attributed to her instead of to Silas, so it's a very confusing sequence. But regardless, he's like, okay, well, you're new tech, it's all that stuff, we'll talk about it later. So she disappears and he's like, I don't know about this. So we go to Cyborg, who's in the the cybernetic act, and he's being examined in a big old tube, and they're like, all right, scan him for alien bits. And they do a scan, and like 90% of his body lights up with alien bits. And just like, what does that mean? And it's just like, well, that means it's not human cybernetics, it's alien stuff. Because of the techno sapiens before, we can't trust none of that, so we're gonna start ripping his ass apart. And Shazam, who for some reason is allowed to hang out in here, he's just chilling in the waiting room, he's looking through the glass, he's like, what are you gonna do to him? It's like, oh, we're gonna rip him apart. He's machine, he's not a man. To which point Shazam's of course he's a man. Look at it, he's Victor Stone. He's this all stuff. And to be fair, the one guy in charge, which he points out, this guy is a single command away from becoming a one-man war machine. We cannot allow that to happen. Meanwhile, in the Justice League comic, his body is overtaken by Grid, a sentient virus thing, and then, yeah, he becomes a one-man war. He's very justified in this belief. But regardless, they're saying, yeah, we're going to take him apart. And then Shazam's like, no, I won't let you do that. But then they're like, excuse me, you're here as a courtesy. We're not going to let the Justice League step in and do things against the U.S. government. So they zap him with a bunch of tasers, take him down to the ground. And they're like, we knew that you were trying to just infiltrate. We saw Cyborg trying to poke around inside our systems. Your backup plan has failed. All of this is for nothing. So we go back to the Red Room thing again. And Silas is like, no, but please, like, tell me, you think there's something suspicious about this too, right? And he's like, no, she's wrong. She remembers everything about me. She remembers all the stories. And he's like, yeah, about you. Nothing from before you were born is in her memory banks. I think that whatever happened here, it was downloaded from your memories and probably has something to do with the Techno Sapiens. She also wants you to go to Cybertech, which means you should stay the hell away from Cybertech. And just like, okay, or we can, I can get the JLA's assistance and we can do all this other stuff. So it's pointing out how this is part of the plan and all this sort of things. So then we go back into the room and we see the dude comes up and he's like, Cyborg, I came in here to talk. This is just you and me talking. No one else is around. I had a heart attack a few months ago. It was a big one. I got an artificial heart put in, and what nobody knew is when the Techno Sapiens attacked, it got taken over, and I'm still synced with them. I've been running their plans all along. The government doesn't actually give a shit about any of this cybernetic stuff. This is all just so I can get in here and I'm going to take your operating system because it has the ability to change and evolve, which none of the Techno Sapiens have, and that's all they've ever wanted. And all of this has been a part of my plan, including the hologram of your mother. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I didn't technically do that, but it was coming down from the top down. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to steal all your iOS or whatever. And so we see he, plugs in whatever, does whatever he can. He's like, it's not causing you that much damage. I wonder what's allowing that to happen. I expect you to scream out in pain a lot more. And he's like, oh, you think that all of me is machine, but actually my brain is human and blah, blah, blah. Point being is he's like, look, we knew that you would be suspicious of Shazam and all of your systems or whatever. That's why I while you fought him, I downloaded myself into your network. I wasn't looking to steal your files. I was looking to get myself in there. And therefore, I'm now going to destroy your systems. And he like starts blowing up computers. He looks into the system, finds where all of their other presence is, the techno-sapiens are at, and starts wiping them off the board, deleting them. And he's got this whole Jesus Christ looking thing because he's held up by a bunch of wires. And he's basically like, yeah, you think you're so much above humans, but we will never be defeated. And at that point, portals with a bunch of techno-sapiens open up. They're like, oh, hey, we hear the song you're singing, Cyborg. And he's like, all right, well, screw you. Shazam comes in, joins the fight, and they just immediately take out all the techno-sapiens. So that's that. They bust out, give themselves a high five, and just like, all right, there's one more thing I got to do because of what I just learned about my mother. So he goes back to the Red Room where Silas and his mother are, and he walks in now changed to look entirely human. And he's like, hey, I'm here, but you're not my mom. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? I am your mom. Whatever you heard, it's just a trick that they're playing to turn you against me. And he's like, all right, then tell me the story about the cabin. Tell me this story that's oh so important here. And she's like, I don't know it. I'm sorry. My memory banks, they must be faulty. And he's like, no, I'm sorry. You look like her. You talk like her. You're everything I remember about her, but you're not her. And he uses his sonic blast gun to dissipate her into the void. And he's like, Dad, I just need some confirmation here. You're 100% sure that definitely wasn't Mom, right? And he's like, yes, it looked like her, but there was something missing behind her eyes. It wasn't her. So he basically just sits down with the son and says, look, you're not only human inside and out, but you're the best human I've ever known. So ends that issue. What we do for the next two issues, I don't know. Marv Wolfman's just going to throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Yeah, no, it's weird. It's weird because they had this whole thing set up. And then it's like Marv Wolfman's like, well, I mean, I'll end your arc for you, but I'm just going to do it super quickly. I'm taking all the pieces that we set up, literally everything, and I'm just throwing it away. Fine, cool, if that's what you want to do, but you only got 2 issues to play with. You got 11 and 12, I think. Yeah, it only goes up to 12. What are we doing? So, yeah, it's not like it's a horrible ending. It's just so fast. It's so rushed. I don't know. I guess 7. It's strange because it's exactly how I felt the story should end. It's just done on fast forward, you know, like every single beat they hit, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it turns out they're actually evil. It's not the government. I would have preferred it just be, no, the government is actually scared of cybernetics and we have to have Cyborg fighting the system. But no, it's always techno-sapiens. It'll never not be techno-sapiens. 7. Whatever. Suicide Squad Most Wanted number 4, the Katana story written by Mike W. Barr, art by Diogenes Neves. So last issue, Suicide Squad and Katana made their way out of the place where Cobra was taken over, and then Cobra caught them anyway. Whatever. So this issue picks up with King Cobra. He's crowning himself king of Markovia, and he's sitting on the throne, and everyone is forced to look on, including all of his, followers, and his wife are there and all that sort of stuff. And we see that Eve, the wife, has Katana's katana. And as Cobra's making his speech saying like, oh yes, I will take over, all this other stuff, Katana's like, hey Eve, looks like you're having trouble with my sword. I'll teach you how to handle several inches of it. And she's like, all right, whatever. I can kill you whenever. Other members of the Suicide Squad, Cold Snap and the other one, are struggling not to touch each other because they're chained together. And Captain Boomerang is working on freeing himself. We see Cobra comes out and he's like, hey, look, I know you were sent by your governments and all that sort of stuff, but we'll keep you here at least long enough for them to reconsider their plot to interfere with us, and you may provide other diversions. To which point, Katana's like, hey, Boomerang, are you cutting yourself out? And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? He's like, because literally you're the only one who's like able to do that right now. So she provides a distraction, kicks Eve in the face, gets her katana thrown up into the air, and then all the rest of the Suicide Squad also somehow magically gets out of their binds. So as they're all blasting, doing whatever, we see Battle Axe tosses Harley her hammer and says, just stay out of my way. I'm going nuts here. And then as Katana plans out where her katana's going to fall. She's like, either I'm spot on and it'll cut my ropes, or I'm about to be killed and I'll join my husband inside the sword. And of course, she's right. It cuts her ropes. The Prince of Markovia, whatever his name is, grabs a machine gun, also joins in the fight. And we see King Cobra comes over to Eve and is just like, hey, give me my special device. They will pay for this. And he fires it off at Battle Axe, who the bomb in her neck that Amanda Waller put there starts glowing, and then all of a sudden her head explodes. And even Cobra is just like, ooh, so that's what they do. That's crazy. To which point the Suicide Squad is like, we all gotta bail now. So they start running. We have Cold Snap and, again, whatever her name is, Heat Powers. They provide a level of fog so that they can escape. Everyone starts making their way out. Prince Byron, that's his name, is encouraged to come with them because his country needs warriors, not martyrs. So he's like, all right, fine, let me go. So he takes the crown in all the scuffle, but also leaves. Not to worry, because in case you were worried about the cat who was injured last issue, we get multiple panels showing that the cat has been saved and is kept in a box, but is also still injured. So they start making their way out. They get into a convoy and kill the guards and manage to leave it. And then Boomerang throws some explosive arrows to close the door behind them. And so they start making their way deep out into the mountains. It takes hours to drive until they reach a secret military base that the Prince has set up. And Katana picks up the cat, and the doctor's like, I'm sorry, we've done everything we could, but the cat might not be making it through this. And he's like, oh, I appreciate it, doctor, I'm so sorry. And then Enchantress shows up and is like, hey, Katana, cool cat, check this out. And she zaps it with some magic, and then the cat's fine. And she's like, yeah, I don't think any innocent animal should suffer. Harley comes in trying to talk to Katana, and it's just like, hey, you cool? Is everything great? And she's like, I don't want to talk to you. But she points out that during all the kerfuffle of the last fight, Katana's outfit got damaged. And so she's like, yeah, I guess I'll go deal with that. And she makes her way into the bunker room of this place where I guess there's some fabric. She takes some time to sew something together. And wouldn't you know it, when she comes back out, she's in the movie accurate version of her outfit. This whole goddamn book was seemingly put together to get her into the movie accurate version. Son of a bitch. So yeah, they come out and they start making a plan. They're just like, all right, so Battle Axe was killed. He's got a gun that can blow up our bombs. That's nuts. What should we do about that? And Boomerang's like, oh, well, what can we do? He's always one step ahead of us. And Katana points out he's like a cobra, you see? He's always feinting in misdirection. We have to bring the battle to him rather than letting him determine how we fight him. So it's just like, all right, well, how do we do that? Like, we don't know where his headquarters location is. Well, how do we find that out? To which point Katana says, Enchantress, come with me. We're going to the back room. And when they get back there, well, there's one little interstitial where, if you remember, a Dr. Jace was kidnapped. And Katana, during this sequence where she says, yeah, it's all misdirection or whatever, she points out that why would Cobra need to kidnap this Dr. Jace just to run Markovia? That doesn't make any sense. There must be a larger plan here at play. And we see Dr. Jace is working on the patient who I vaguely remember as being able to like self-medicate or something like that. So she's getting herself high, and Jason's like, yeah, well, we're working on it. It's doing our thing. And then Cobra's like, you want to see what the real plan is, Dr. Jason? She's like, yeah, sure. And then he takes her to a back room and shows something with some magical colors. We don't find out what it is. So anyway, Katana goes into the back room with Enchantress, shoves her sword in the wall and says, my sword has souls in it. And immediately I get the idea of, oh, she killed some Cobra people with that. She's going to use that to get some information out of them on how to find the Cobra headquarters. And I'm correct, but I also added on the extra thing of Enchantress will use her spells in order to have that conversation. No, turns out Katana can just do this. She can commune with the souls inside the sword. And she talks to one of the Cobra guys who says, yeah, sure, you just got to do this code and all this stuff. There's a frequency. I'll tell you everything about it, as long as you then spare me from an eternity in this sword. To which I guess Katana can also do that. And she sends him to hell, and he's grateful for it. And then she talks to her husband in the sword for like a quarter second. And he's like, hey, don't worry about freeing me. Heaven would be lonely without you. I'll see you around eventually. And Enchantress is just like, wow, I didn't have anything to do with that, but thanks for letting me know. And then as Katana walks away, she turns to Deadshot and is like, Katana trusts me. We'll be able to take her sword for Amanda Waller. Oh no. So, yeah, Katana goes out and talks to the prince. It's basically like, oh, don't worry, we'll deal with this. We've got our code. Well, let's go ahead and do it. And they type in the code they need to. Cobra agents get the code, and it's like, hey, we got a pickup code. It all matches, but it doesn't have the prerequisite implants that are also necessary for the code. To which point the other Cobra agent says, well, then you know what to do. And they fire a space cannon down at the location. As far as I can tell, it's this giant-ass cannon that just shows up, goes, and they're all dead. So, we'll see how they get out of that one. God, I felt like such a rube when she shows up in the new outfit and she's like, yep, this is me now. And I'm like, God damn, this was all just to get in line with the movie. Son of a bitch. I knew it was a movie tie-in book in sense of like, oh, you know, brand synchronicity here. We're doing these both, and people who see the movie are going to see this book on the shelves and think, wow, great, I can read about my favorite characters, Katana and Deadshot. But no, it's just for the costume. No, I'm bored with this story. Like, they're playing it simultaneously too close to the chest and also just doing nothing. You know, like they keep on hinting, oh, there's this big mystery. What is Cobra's final plan's going to be? We're 4 issues into the 6-issue series, and it feels like they're still just playing like peekaboo with it. They're just like, oh, don't worry, we're definitely going to get around to that. But like, no, you're not doing anything else. The fact that they were captured last issue, made their escape, and then were like captured again. And now this issue is they escape again. She changes costumes, and now they're blown out of the sky again. It's like, make some forward progress. Do anything here. It's not catching my attention anymore. And the damn cat, Jesus Christ. I'll give it like a 6. That seems fair. I almost want to go lower, but it's just a boring book. That's the long and short of it. I'm bored with this story, and I want it to end. So, 6. Suicide Squad Most Wanted number 4, the Deadshot story, written by Brian Buccellato, art by Viktor Bogdanovic. So, last issue, yeah, Deadshot's taken out of the game. He's being replaced with new Deadshot, guy named Evans. And we open up with the Red Marketplace, an annual meeting for all the most illegal things in the world. And we see it's like an entire con. There's like neon signs saying cocaine, cheap guns, buy a politician. But the biggest sign is reserved for illegal comic downloads. Teehee. So yeah, we see that Evans is basically saying like, yep, these guys, they have a 3-day bender. All of the worst people are here. And we've got in here to take down one of the biggest black markets. And this is also where I got my start all those years ago. And he explains for the last 4 months now, he's been working with the Suicide Squad. They were targeting a powerful cartel leader named Guillermo Che La Paz. And now they've got him. He's in the crowd, and he was basically used as the entry for the Suicide Squad to get into this event where they're going to take out the board of directors for the Red Marketplace. But one of the things they're doing is having Deadshot, Evans in this case, step forward, and he's offering up his contract services. And it's 5 different contracts starting with $25 million each. And we see there's Olivia, the other person who's been a part of the story, is out in the helicopter. She's running a little bit of the main bit here. She's like, all right, I've got facial ID on 3 of them. Everyone know where they are. Everyone good. And we see Cheetah's there, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, and Diablo. So as they're all doing this stuff, it's like, all right, now that we've got a lock on them, don't kill them. We need them for more information. But anyone else technically is fair game, but like, don't cause excess damage. To which Evans comes out and says, yeah, well, they're all criminals, so I'm not going to feel bad about it. And he just jumps out and starts shooting people left and right. And he says, like, yeah, it might look over the top, all this killing, but like, again, my origin story is that my family was killed by some stray bullets during a drug deal gone wrong, and with no family, I found strength. I refused to become a victim, and I just started beating people up all the time. Eventually, I channeled that into hurting people. I became muscle for hire. I was working with some mobs and stuff like that. Then I got locked up, and I met Deadshot in a holding cell, and he heard my story, and we talked for a little bit. He's a personal hero of mine. I loved hearing about him. And he gave me the advice saying, if you want to do good on a job, you can't give a crap about anything, including your own life, because that's what holds you back. If you're willing to go out there and just die for it, that means you can go ahead and do anything. And Evans is like, he understood how I feel, like I get it, but I did give a crap about myself. It was that fear that allowed me to become great. And so he put in the extra effort. He became a top assassin. And then after 2 years of training and another 7 just rising up ranks and whatnot, he became the best killer and said, well, I'm going to make Deadshot pay for taking my origin story. So he did the red market. And turns out he was bound to the red market for quite some time, forced to work for them if he didn't release his contract. And then Amanda Waller showed up and said, hey, I need someone to replace Deadshot, you win. So cut back to modern day. We see going out into the crowd here. Diablo's on crowd control of like making sure nobody can leave. They're going and they're trying to take out as many of these head peoples as possible. And then the Shayla Paz guy that they used to get their ticket in here, Evans just shoots him in the head, and Harley's like, hey, that was one of our guys, what are you doing? And he's just like, oh, whatever, you're just worried I was going to hit you, and I wouldn't hit you, you know it otherwise. And Harley doesn't like him. He's just like, oh, this guy, he's replacing Deadshot, screw him, he's not important. We see Cheetah's also killing a bunch of people, but they don't seem to be like the main targets. And when Harley and Captain get their hands on a few of the board of directors, and he's just like, all right, I got them. They're restrained. They're not going anywhere. Evan just goes, pop, pop. All right, they're dead too. Harley calls out to Olivia on the line, just being like, hey, he's killing our targets. He's doing the thing he said not to do. And Olivia relays this over to Amanda, just like, yeah, he's off the mark. He's going nuts. And she's basically just like, all right, look, patch me into him now. And she basically says, look, we need these board of directors alive. What are you doing? He's like, well, I don't want them alive, and I'm the one with the gun. So, yeah. And at that point, Cheetah and Boomerang are like, hey, look, if we're just here to like murder a bunch of people who are bad people already, like, I don't have a problem with that. That's all good to do. And Waller's like, I'm still calling the shots here. And even Harley's like, no, we can't all be wild cards, guys. I'm the wild card. And if you're all going murder hobo, I'm out. I'm not dealing with this anymore. So Diablo feels the same. He's also out on this. And Olivia hacks in on the channel, says, hey, look, we need to contain him. Do what you can. And we see also patches into Diablo, and Diablo makes a ring of fire around Deadshot, to which Evans turns around and shoots Diablo in the head. He seems pretty gosh darn dead. Now later on we see him getting carted out on a medical cart, which implies he ain't, but he seems pretty gosh darn dead here. So a bunch of the board of directors are all moving to a chopper. Olivia picks this up saying, hey, yeah, they're getting out there. You need to restrain them. You need to keep them from taking off, but you also can't let Deadshot get to them. And we see Deadshot just making his way like Terminator style, following out to the helipad. Harley gets turned around. She accidentally takes the wrong route. And as Deadshot gets out onto the helipad, he sees Olivia there, who's trying to give Harley orders on how to essentially take him down, and he loads up some rockets inside of his armband. Olivia goes for the neck bomb, like, we don't have another choice, we need to blow it up. And that's when Amanda comes over the comms like, he joined voluntarily, he doesn't have a neck bomb, I thought we could trust him. And we see that he takes the shot, headshot on Olivia, she falls to her death, and helicopter falls out of the sky. So that's that. He then uses the rockets to blow up the helicopters with all the board of directors in there. They're all gone as well. And at that point, like, everyone starts getting out. Everyone's heading out on like helicopters, making escapes, whatever like that. Waller's like, this is my fault. Olivia's dead because of me. I bet on Evans to follow through on what we need to do here. I made a bad bet. So Floyd, I'm coming down. I'm going to free you. You're going to get back in the game, and we're going to get back in this. But when she joins into Deadshot's cell, It's a bloody mess in there, but Deadshot is nowhere to be seen. So what happened? Who knows? Beats me. I actually really like this one. I like the turn on Evans here, where it's like, yeah, no, you have this guy who is willing to kill, and he takes it too far. He's obviously a loose cannon. There's nothing that can be done about that. And I appreciate that Waller just overestimates her abilities. Like, it feels good there. Harley also being like, well, hold on, I don't like being the voice of reason, but like, I guess that's what I am now. That's also a fun time. So, no, it does a good job. Also, art looks fantastic. Really don't have a problem with Bogdanovic. So, overall, I feel like it's a... I kind of want to say an 8. I'm really enjoying this story. I'm liking to see, and obviously it's going to come down to a sniper face-off between the two of them, but however it comes out, I'm enjoying it. So, yeah, 8 for this. Batgirl number 51, written by Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, art by Eleonora Carlini, Ming-Kyu Jung, and Roger Robinson. So, yeah, last issue wrapped up the arc. It felt like very final, but we still got 2 more issues here, and we're picking back up on from the annual number 3, I believe, which is the Gladius people. Batgirl arrested their leader, and then this entire cult just disappeared off the face of the earth. So we see that a SWAT car has been overtaken. It's been stolen, loaded up full of weapons, and we see that the people driving are Gladius goons. And coming up on a motorcycle behind, they're like, oh god, it's in a cape, it's in Burnside, it's got to be Batgirl, we got to take her out. But we see it isn't Batgirl, it's actually, spoiler, Stephanie Brown, who this entire issue only once wears her mask. Otherwise, she's just like Supermaning it. It's insane to me. But regardless, she pulls out some sort of like rocket launcher, talks to Frankie, aka operator, over the line, and is just like, you sure this is good? And it's just like, yeah, just fire it. I'll take care of the rest. Turns out it's not a rocket. It's a hacking device that can also crawl like a bug. And it gets onto the engine block of the swap car and then just takes it out, disables it entirely. So she hops onto the hood, manages to get them tied up and arrested, and just like, hey, yeah, did it. It's super awesome. And they're like, great, sounds cool. And she, for spoilers' sake and the audience's sake, reiterates the stuff of like, Gladius is a terrorist group. They had a bomb hidden in Gotham Academy. They did this whole thing. We locked up the Gladius commander. See why they're showing up now again, because they did all disappear. What's this group coming back for again? And so spoiler tries to get some information. We see that he bites down on what seems to be a cyanide pill, but it turns out it's actually amnesia, so he can't actually answer any questions anyway, so it's like, all right, well, that's not going to work. Anyway, operator, almost out of gear. I need some more stuff. And she's like, all right, I'll make a call. We then go to this weird guy standing out in the middle of the docks or whatever. He's like a super scary looking dude, but he's got clear scan lines on his face. And she's like, oh, can I call you if I need some more gear? Do I have to go through the operator? And he's like, no one's allowed to know who I am. But then his face starts glitching out, and we see that it's actually just some hologram stuff for Kadir, who's now acting as the gear person for all of Batgirl's friends. Barbara calls up Kadir saying, hey, I've been waiting for you for 20 minutes in your lab. Where are you at? And she's like, oh, I'm doing something for Batgirl right now. Actually, one of her compatriots, her name is Spoiler, and Spoiler seems to have the hots for Kadir. So at that point, Batgirl's like, wait a minute, I don't know nothing about this. Calls up Frank and is like, hey, you put Spoiler out in harm's way. And apparently Harper Row as well, Bluebird. I wanted to train with them and teach them how to do things. They're just kids. And Frankie's like, they are as young as you were when you first started. And frankly, you've been way too busy with the Gordon Clean Energy stuff. Like, you don't have the time to be Batgirl much anymore. And she's like, yeah, you know, I have so much stuff going on. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's time for me to hang up Batgirl. Maybe that's what's going on. She's like, no. Babs, don't do that. Don't let Fugue win. Like, you can still be Batgirl. Burnside needs Batgirl. And she's like, all right, yeah. And then Frankie points out, by the way, Gladius is coming back. We got to deal with that stuff. So we see that Black Canary, I guess, was sent in to go take care to find where Gladius is meeting up. She finds one of their bases, starts kicking ass. She gets down to one guy and is just like, hey, look into the camera on this computer, tell them all your plans. And we see that Frankie and Batgirl are on the other side. And just like, oh, our commander's about to be set free. We were going to get her in just a few hours. And Babs points out, oh, they were going to do a prisoner transfer on the Gladius commander because there was a threat to break her out of Blackgate, and they were taking that seriously. And then all of a sudden the camera goes out, and Barbara immediately assumes there was a bomb or something in there. It went off. Black Canary might be dead. I'm sending in help. I'm going to go get Vixen to go in and help her out. And if anyone has harmed her at all, I'm going to go straight up crazy on them. So we see that she goes to the unmarked van that is transporting the Gladius commander. Somehow, of course, they know about it, and they're trying to do scans, trying to figure out how they're going to break her out. All of a sudden, the van explodes from the bottom, flips over upside down. Gladius people are trying to break through the locks. They're welding through it. Batgirl comes in, kicks some ass. However, she's not fast enough to stop the commander from taking out all the guards in the van and escaping herself. So they start doing a one-on-one fist fight. The commander's like, hey, you're like slower than you were the last time we fought. I can kick your ass now. However, I'm going to act in moderation. And a helicopter comes in overhead. She grabs hold of a ladder and just takes off. And as Barbara tries to fire off a grappling hook, she just cuts right through the rope and says, haha, not this time. Goodbye. So Barbara's a little bit concerned at how slow she was fighting. She calls in Frankie like, hey, I got that new neural chip after the whole fugue thing. Is there a chance it's operating slower? She's like, let me look it over. No, it's not. It looks fine to me. They wonder if there's any word from Black Canary. Nothing yet, but they're hoping that everything's going to be fine. However, the Gladius network is starting to build back up. So she's like, I'll do some data mining on that and see if I can find the words Black Canary anywhere. And then we see that Luke is there. And as Babs and Luke are left alone, he's like, hey, look, don't worry about all the stuff that's been going on. Like, I'm just happy to be with you. You're the most wonderful woman I've met. And then she immediately pushes away and just like, no, I'm sorry. You're perfect. You've got all this stuff, but I need to go away for a while and figure out what's going on. Like, I need to put my focus on being a better Batgirl. And he's like, all right, no, I get it. But one day you're going to have to decide, do you want to be Batgirl or do you want to use the system to help things so that you can eventually hang up your cape and tights? And we see she goes off moping in the bathroom. Alicia's there. I don't even remember this. I feel like it was set up, but I completely forgot it. Her old roommate shows up. She's acting as the general manager for Gordon Clean Energy. And she's like, hey, are you doing all right? Everything fine? She's like, yeah, I'm just going through a lot. Speaking of which, let's go to my office. They go to the office and she's like, I'm putting you in charge of the whole company. You do a great job. I just need to take some time off. I trust you to run it. And she's like, yes, of course. Everything will be fine. So we then see Barbara goes to the library, but not just any library, the Gotham Academy library, because all of Brendan Fletcher and Cameron Stewart's books are so incestuous with each other. She's sitting opposite the table of Olive Silverlock, and she's like, your name is Olive Silverlock, aren't you? Didn't you, have Batgirl at your school a while back? And I was like, what? Why are you talking to me? And she's like, oh, nothing. You have this white hair and this very main character look about you. And then all of a sudden there's a noise of like, Olive, come here. And it turns out it's maps. She found a blueprint to some story that they are apparently doing of finding a missing tower on the Gotham Academy grounds. And when Babs hears about this, she's like, hey, you shouldn't be, and they're like looking through the racks of books so they can't see each other's faces. She says, hey, you shouldn't be saying that out in the open, these secret blueprints. After all, second rule of Superhero Club is keep your secrets a secret. And when Maps looks through the bookshelf, she just sees Batgirl's face from like the nose down. She's like, that's Batgirl. We met earlier. That was a whole thing. So she runs off to try to meet her. And already Babs has made her escape. So, Batgirl goes back home. She's packing a bag. She's got a thumbtack somewhere in Japan, which that's for future stories, I guess. And we see that there's a news story going on basically saying, well, Batgirl's nowhere to be seen, but there are two new heroes, Spoiler and Bluebird, who have been saving Burnside all on their own. This news reporter loves them. They're doing great. They're doing fantastic. And Babs gives a little smile. Then we see that Black Canary and Vixen come in through the door, a little bit worse for wear, a little bit bruised up. Black Canary was like, yeah, Vixen saved me. I was taken hostage. It was a whole thing. There was an explosion, but of course I survived. But yeah, Gladius is out there. They're doing a bbig thing, and we got to go ahead and deal with it. And he's like, oh yeah, they're going to come after my company because I took their tech, right? And Black Canary's like, no, their commander has set their sights elsewhere. We think that Gladius is targeting Gotham Academy again. They mean to take down the school and all the children that got in their way. And that's the issue. Of course it's Gotham Academy. Why wouldn't it be Gotham Academy? Yeah. Nah. Look, in terms of wrapping up what was theoretically set up in that annual, like, fine, fair enough. You're doing a good payoff there, but, like, goddamn, is it just, like, the most boring thing? Oh no, Gotham Academy. Are you reading Gotham? You gotta be reading Gotham Academy, guys. Go check out that book. And to be fair, that book was canceled, so I appreciate the fact that they're trying to push for it. No, I don't know. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get into this chapter of the story. I understand the idea of she wants to become a better Batgirl, and that's going to lead into she has not one but two books in Rebirth, so it makes sense of like doing this little bit of setup here of leading into that. But I think it much rather would have been served with an idea of doing a smaller story for just one issue. Do a Spoiler and Bluebird story and like Batgirl training them or something like that, and then just do one issue that's all epilogue. One issue of, I need to go, I'm packing things up, I'm leaving my company behind, all that. The Gladius stuff is just so uninteresting on like a base level, and the fact that you're making it do Gotham Academy just feels like we're not focused on Batgirl. We're not focused on this book specifically. We're just focused on Gotham Academy. So, I've got my qualms, I guess I'll say. It's a 6.5. A 7 just feels like too much for this. I'm just a little bit let down by the whole, and especially because I know it's going to fall into next issue as well. It's all going to be part of this one larger thing where it's like, now we're spending time at Gotham Academy and we're going to be blah, 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 blah. It's a 6.5. It feels right. It feels where it's at. I'd rather it be something else, but this is what we got. Sinestro number 22, written by Collin Bunn, art by Martin Coccolo. So, last issue was kind of just the big wrap-up of everything that was going on with the Paling and the Pale Bishops and stuff like that, but Soranik was put in charge of the Sinestro Corps, and she was taking that seriously. This issue picks up with some random sector of space. There's some scientists. They found some moons they want to terraform. No life there. They're totally peaceful. And then all of a sudden, Dexter shows up from the Red Lanterns and just starts mauling this scientist, busts right in through the glass on the window, so the space vacuum is sucking them out as well. And we see there's a bunch of Red Lanterns there, led by Bleez, who's like, hey, Dexter, like, don't kill them all. We need to give them some warning so they could see us coming. And one of the scientists is like, please, we're completely peaceful. We don't want anything. We don't know malice. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what we hate. So the Red Lanterns come in. They fix the window by spewing it with their own blood. And is like, all right, here's the deal. We want you to send out a distress signal. That's the number one thing we want. And they're like, you sure? Because if I do this, and it's like, yeah, you let me worry about that. So they send out a distress signal, and it's like, all right, there's the signal, which means that the Sinestro Corps will be coming soon. And Bleez is like, cool. So tell me about your research. So we go back over to New Corrigar, where all the Corrigarians are still doing some work, and also the Sinestro Corps, I guess, is helping out as well. And Soranik is talking to Umral Jarta. It's this holy woman of the Corrigarian people, and is like, yeah, I took over and, like, you know, from the outside, Sinestro making all these decisions, like, it was easy to say he was making the wrong choices. He was doing evil things. But now that I'm the one that's forced to make these choices, I feel like, yeah, I get the weight of it. Like, he must have also been under the same weight. And she's like, yeah, totally. Like, he's went under the same pressures as you, but Sinestro's whim, whatever it is that he wants to do, is dangerous for everyone except himself. It's good to have someone who can push back against him. And right now he's diminished, he's all this stuff, but it's good that you're here in charge. And she points out, like, it makes it sound like I'm part of some larger plan that he made and all that. And Umral's like, yeah, probably, but at the very least, you are able to make your own decisions here, or at least it seems like you can. So as Umral's walking away, we see that there are some Sinestro Corps members who are like, screw the Sinestro Corps, screw the Korrigarians. Like, once Soranik is dead, all of the Korrigarians will go after that woman, and then we can take her out as well. And they're a dying breed. They may as well be put out of their misery as it stands. And they talk about just murdering her now. Like, why not? She's out in the open, doing whatever. And they say, not yet, not yet. We got to wait for the right time. And then Sinestro comes out from behind a rock, and he ain't looking so hot. But he's like, hey, I heard your plan. And they're like, how'd you know we were here? And it's like, I share a bed with a psychic. And also I know a bit about treachery. So let's talk. And they're just like, dude, you look horrible. We could easily take you down. Like the great Sinestro, may as well just accelerate our timetables, right? And he's just like, yeah, maybe, but you forgot this. And then we see Sinestro has set up his own inner circle called the Black Circle. And it's just all the Sinestro Corps members that we focused on at all. A bunch of them come out, and they just immediately start slicing and dicing through these Sinestro Corps members. One of them's left alive. He has his arm cut off, and he's like, please show me mercy. I see the error of my ways. And Sinestro's like, oh no, mercy is for leaders. That's not who I am anymore. So as they're murdering this guy, Soranik puts on a ring, and she's like, all right, I have to do this because who else can? And we see that she approaches this young Korrigarian who scraped her knee, and it's bleeding pretty badly. And she's like, hey, let me take a look. And she uses her powers to make a bandage. She uses the fear powers in order to help heal someone. Just like, all right, those bandages will vanish in a few days. You just take it easy until then. So the girl runs off. And as he's doing so, Sinestro points out that the science division is working on a specific task that he doesn't quite fully understand the point of. And immediately, Lyssa Drax is like, you're betraying the Corps, you're doing all this stuff. And Soranik's like, no, look, this is important because the Green Lanterns were friends of mine. I want to know what happened to them. I sent the science division to try to figure out what happened to the Green Lanterns. And we see the Yellow Lanterns, like, they're doing their multiple different things. They're protecting their sectors. They're hunting down known fugitives like Lobo. They're saying that they've got the hunt down on him. They're also searching for Mongol, going out through different systems trying to find where he is, but they're also looking into the Green Lantern things. And in fact, they heard a rumor that the Green Lanterns did return, and we see a shot of it, and it turns out it was actually just a bunch of Durlans who were shape-shifting. So yeah, it wasn't actually the Green Lanterns, but they're still going out trying to figure out where they might be, rounding up, doing whatever they can, but they are taking care of the universe. They are acting as protectors here, and we see they even go up against like Starro and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, they're doing their job. They're protecting the galaxy. So what would be the problem if they help bring the Green Lanterns back? Like, why? And specifically, why would Sinestro ever want that sort of thing? It's like, oh, well, it's because you are our leader. I'll help you, because if you think it's the right thing to do, then yeah, sure. In fact, I've got a bunch of Manhunter androids just waiting to search throughout the deep universe. You give the word, I'll send them out. So do we have your permission? And Soranik's like, yes. And he's like, cool, great, they're gone. And Soranik's like, what, that's it? That's all it's going to be? And he's like, yes, that's all I've got. And he starts limping away, all sad looking or whatever. And Soranik's like, son of a bitch. All right, look, Sinestro, come by the medical wing tomorrow morning. I want to take a look up on your condition. Maybe we can help get you through this. So then we go to the distress beacon. We see Des Trevius is the one going out there. And as he gets in, he's like, oh man, this place is messed up. I'm taking a closer look, seeing what's up. There might be survivors deeper inside, but like outside, it's a bloodbath. So as he gets in there, he hears a drumming noise, a loud heartbeat, one would say. Life signatures are detected, emotional anomaly, and wouldn't you know it, he's attacked by the red blood. And it starts burning his arm as it wraps around it, and we see the entire Red Lantern Corps is there, and they say, Fear Lantern, lead us to where Sinestro is hiding so we can take revenge against him. And all the main guys are there, like Atrocitus, but also I think she called the Blood Mother. And here's the thing. That's the end of the issue. But here's the thing. I remember the Red Lanterns being brought back. I remember them being mentioned and them being like, oh, hey, yeah, the Red Lanterns and the Blood Mother and all this stuff. But for the life of me, I cannot remember where that was. I'm assuming it was this book. I'm assuming it was a previous issue, but I cannot find it. So I'm assuming we're just following up on that storyline. We'll see what's going on there. But yeah, as Blood Mother and all this other stuff, and they're going to attack Sinestro in the final issue. Cool, great, awesome. it kind of just feels like a status quo issue. It's just pointing out, hey, here's what the Yellow Lanterns are doing. Here's what they're like under Soranik's rule. I would assume that the plan is that we're going to stick with her in charge of the Yellow Lantern Corps for the foreseeable future. God only knows what Rebirth does to those plans, but it seems like that's the setup. So, yeah, I'm going to say this is a 7.5. Feels good. Doesn't feel great. It's just, all right, here's the status quo. We're going into the final issue showing the might of the Sinestro Corps under Soranik's rule. Maybe Sinestro will do something cool in the meantime, but all in all, it's a good time. Black Canary number 11, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Sandy Jarrell. So, last issue we found out that the Black Canary band was being brought to Berlin, and that's a bad thing. Look, last issue was so dense with just rushing through like 100 things, I can barely catch up. So, this issue, we see that the person Black Canary, Dinah, has gotten to Berlin, and she has managed to spot the club that theoretically her band is at. And she is on the comms with Frankie and Babs, aka the characters from Batgirl, and saying like, hey, yeah, you got any hits on the inside? And they're like, yeah, we see tons of people in there. They are armed and waiting for you. So wait for someone else to show up. We got Vixen on the way. Like, it's clearly a trap. And she's just like, well, it's like you don't even know me. And we see some amount of time later on, she's already made her way in and all the people have been knocked out. And she's like, you sure? I got 1 or 2 more punches in me if there's any left over. And it's like, nah, you got them. They're all gone. Anyway, once again, still stinks of traps in there, so be careful. So Dinah goes inside this club, and we see that the person taking coats is like also part of this. She's holding up one of the masks of the people that she just killed, but she lets her in anyway. And as she gets up to the main stage, we see, oh God, what's his name? Isaac Orato. That's it. He is acting as the lead singer. He's got like this weird face mask on, and the Black Canary band seems to be in some sort of a trance behind him. And Dinah gets up and just like, what are you doing up there? And he's just like, oh, hey, check it out. The lead singer, Dinah, she's here, and she'll be joining her band, and they'll all get up and sing whatever. And so happy for them to join in the performance now that the vocalist has arrived. And she's like, ah, crap, this was a trap. All right, they were expecting me here. So she walks up. She said that she's here for a friend. She's not here to put on a show. And just like, oh, but we all know that you're a performer. Let me remind you of your true nature. And he sings some German trance chant thing that puts her into a hypnotic state, and then he's like, oh, reveal to me your true heart, and sing, and he turns to the crowd, and he's like, all of you dance, and seemingly it starts to happen, but then Ditto, who is not on stage, but is instead in the crowd, does some vibe check thing, and Dinah snaps out of it, along with the rest of the band, and they're all cheering like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? And they're all hugging each other, and then Isaac, who out in the crowd, is like, ah, crap, all right, well, regardless, we're all gonna fight. So immediately some more masked people jump on the stage. Canary goes for Isaac immediately. It's just being like, all right, what do you want with us? And it's like, I don't want them. I want you and your secrets. And he activates a trapdoor that sends specifically those two down beneath the stage. All the people up top are too busy dealing with the masked people, so Dinah's left to take care of herself. Goes down into a house of mirrors, and we see Isaac. Look, it's so convoluted. Isaac is apparently some form of an immortal vampire werewolf thing. And as he's dancing around this house of mirrors, he's getting slashes off on Dinah and is like licking the blood off of his nails and being like, oh, your blood is delicious. It reminds me of your mother. And like she sees her mom in one of the house of mirrors, and the mom is like turned away from her and is leaving and walking away again. And it's just triggering all this stuff in Dinah's memory. But she's like, oh, what, you want to breed me here? You want to bring me just to feed on me like Judy? And he's like, oh, yeah, your mother's friend. She didn't matter that much. She was just a small taste and all that. And again, he keeps on pushing and pushing. And he keeps saying how he drank the life and the life force or whatever out of here. And Dinah basically is like, look, I don't know what you want, but like, my mom was just there trying to stop you from taking more lives. That she's not a killer like you are. And he's like, oh no, she's so much worse. She fought me. She showed me true pain. She broke me. And Dinah's like, okay, and what? This is your revenge? He's like, no, I want you to heal me and fix me. Because as we established in a previous issue, the 5-finger heaven's palm, whatever, is the key to getting him fixed. He's stuck in some sort of weird anti-state, which I don't even know what, but I mean, I'll just read what he says. The palms technique taps into the very fabric of the universe on a microscopic scale. Tiny strings vibrating in perfect harmony, manipulated with great power and care by a master artist. Your mother was such an artist. Sure, she literally punched the string theory out of this guy, is basically what it is. And then he reveals, also, I fed on your father. He was also delicious. And she's like, no! And she screams and breaks up the illusion of what's going on, which allows her to then kick this guy in the face. His chest opens up and shows there's like a void inside of it and a bunch of teeth. She's about to get eaten. She throws him away. He turns into a writhing mass of shadow goo. And as he makes his way through the Hall of Mirrors out towards an exit, she gives chase. And now all of a sudden they're on that Fortress Island from like 2 issues ago. And Vixen is there fighting a bunch of masked figures, and she's like, wait, how did I end up back here? This doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they just accept it, joins in the fight, says like, oh yes, Isaac Arado. And I can never remember this one. Sandra McCandless, who is apparently Vixen's manager and the friend of Dinah's mother. So they jump in the fight, they do whatever. All of a sudden, Aunt Rena shows up. And obviously she's like, oh, you betrayed the mission, Dinah, you betrayed me, how dare you? And she's basically saying, I was guiding you so that we could get your mother's secrets, but now it's all out in the open. She's like, no, but I still want to discover my mother's secrets. And that's where Sandra's like, hey, that ain't your mother's sister. Like, she's half of the demon Ravanathanana. And then we see she gives this weird demonic smile, stabs a sword through Dinah, and as Dinah's going down to the ground, she's like, that's right, I am not your aunt, I am the headmistress of an ancient demon whatever, and you will reveal your secrets to us. Show us the heaven's palm to make us whole again. And as she's bleeding out on the ground, she is begging like anyone for help, anyone like Frankie, Batgirl, anything like that. No one's coming, but then Ditto steps up and, who has never said a word before, leans in and says, you're not alone, you've never been alone. And that's where the issue ends, to pick up and finalize on the last issue. Same complaints as the last issue. Same complaints as the previous one. It is rushed. It feels very much like we had another whole thing planned and we're just sprinting through it as fast as humanly possible. Why? I don't know. This is just the way we're doing things here. We're throwing out a million billion aspects, and it just feels so like this whole thing of, oh yeah, we got to go to Berlin, and like they're specifically saying last issue how they want to try to find like the thread of all this, and then it's just literally dropped into their lap, you know? Just look, you get it. You're media literate. You know what's going on here. It just feels rushed. So I'm going to say this one is honestly, I'm like at a 6 or a 6.5. It just really was not working for me. I'll say a 6 because it's just, we're introduced to this character for the first time. Yes, he's been mentioned in name before, but like all of a sudden then they're teleported to an island fortress and they literally just say, how did that happen? It's just lazy. It doesn't feel good. I'm giving it a 6. Deathstroke number 17, written by James Bonney, art by Tyler Kirkham. So last issue we got the confirmation that this character that we've never met before named Lawman is behind everything, and he's persuaded Rose to kill her father, and yada yada yada. So this issue picks up with who the hell is Lawman? 5 years ago, Northern Kandak, we see Deathstroke, back when he was Slade, is out on a mission with some other guy named Wardell. And we see that they are surrounded. It's not looking good. They've got heavy wounds, whatever else. But they're like, all right, well, we just got to go out there and kill everybody just to make it to the vehicles. Let's go. And they go out, guns a-blazing. And we see that there's a voice box saying, oh, they were friends once. And another voice says, that was long ago. So then we cut back over to Deathstroke, who is kneeling on the ground. He's been stabbed in the back by Viktor. Snake bites there. It's all this stuff. And immediately, Slade is like, wait a minute, I know that voice. Lawman, are you Wardell? Is that you there? He's like, no, it's Lawman now, shut up. So at that point, he unmasks and says, like, yeah, it's been a long time. You left me for dead on that battlefield. He's like, dude, I watched you get shot like 10 times and we were running and gunning just trying to escape. Yeah, I thought you were dead. And he's like, oh, well, you should look closer because I was still alive and I was taken captive and they tortured me for secrets for so long, but I never gave them a thing. And the entire time they were torturing me, I felt some power inside me growing. And we see that he had some level of mind control abilities that was fueled by his anger and his pain and all that sort of stuff. So he ended up forcing everyone in the camp to kill themselves and each other as he escaped. But he's like, oh, but I knew I only survived because I was meant to give justice to you, Slade. And he explains the whole plan of how he left the dead girl in the daughter's house disguised as Rose, and then led him over to Belle Reve, sent a diversion over to LexCorp, and like did all this stuff just to weaken him and divert his attention and get him right where he needed to be, right here, right now, so that Rose could deliver the killing blow and have Slade murdered. Or at the very least, watch, because it seems like he doesn't actually care whether or not Rose pulls the trigger. And he's like, oh, you should see what's in her head. She hates you so much, Slade. And he's like, yeah, I know. That's like the least surprising thing here. So at that point, we see that he pulls out, he's like, yep, and I'm going to be known as the man who killed Deathstroke. And he pulls out a gun. He has Reis take all of Deathstroke's guns. Deathstroke is like, Reis, I'm going to kill you, by the way. And he's like, yeah, well, we'll see if you make it out of this. And then they say, actually, let's do a knife fight. So, yeah, he pulls out a knife. They start fighting with each other. Red Hood, at this point, who was knocked out on the helicopter, gets up, sees the fight going on. He's like, huh, wonder what this is all about. And then as Deathstroke gets knocked on his ass and everyone else is like, oh, it doesn't seem like he's able to, he's too weak and there's not enough here. Lawman's going to take the win. And he's standing over Deathstroke with a knife. And then all of a ssudden Red Hood shoots the knife out of Lawman's hand and says, hey, Deathstroke, I'll cover you. Get over here. And they go and hide behind some headstones in a cemetery. And Deathstroke's like, why the hell are you on my side? Like, I'll take it, but why? And he's like, I don't know. You seem like you were the underdog, and I got a thing for the underdog. So at that point, Lawman's like, yo, man, Red Hood, I hired you specifically to dick with this guy. What are you doing joining his side? He's like, oh, well, I finished my job. Now it's my personal time. And so they start shooting at Snakebite and Lawman. They flank out. It looks like Snakebite's trying to attack Red Hood. As he uses his tendrils to poison him, Deathstroke cuts him off, and he's like, I know they just grow back, but damn, did that feel good. Red Hood sees that happening, and he's like, oh, hey, you saved my life. But then all of a sudden, Jason's eyes glow red, and he hears a familiar voice from nearby. It's Batman calling his name, saying, hey, Jason, I was wrong about you. Come join me, and we're going to go fight the Joker. He's like, okay, Batman, and he just walks away. And Deathstroke's like, all right, thanks anyway, man. So once again, we jump back into the fight, and even Snakebite asks, why didn't you just kill Red Hood? Like, it seems very obvious that you should have just killed that guy. And he's like, because I might need him again one day. As if he doesn't have his own book he needs to sell. So Deathstroke manages to get the drop on Lawman, shoves a knife into his chest, and he's like, you don't get it. My pain fuels my powers. The more you stab me, the more I get more powerful. And he's trying to mind control Deathstroke, but it ain't working. So they continue the fight the normal way. However, I guess Lawman gets distracted or angry or whatever enough that Rose starts to shake out of it. She starts to get out of her thing, and she sees her father down on the ground, knife to his throat. And then has a flashback to him being a caring father once in her entire childhood. And it's like, oh, you told me my roommate was going to kill me, but that was a lie. And he's like, okay, I guess you shook out of it. Now I got to fight the both of you. So It's a two-fronted sword fight. She gets distracted enough by Lawman's badgering or whatever that he manages to shove a knife straight through her stomach, and she calls out, she's like, "Oh no, Daddy!" And he's like, "I'm here, Rose. Daddy's here." And he uses that opportunity to break Lawman's arm, which Lawman then uses to stab Slade straight through the stomach. And as they're both down on the ground, and he's like, "Oh, I wanted to kill you in front of her, but the opposite works just as well. So be it. I'll see you in hell." He's about to go for the final blow, and then all of a sudden, he says they just disappear. And he's like, "Wait a minute, what? Where'd they go?" And we see Rose is helping escort Slade off of the battlefield, saying how their minds have been clouded. They can't see either of them anymore. And Slade's like, "Who the hell has the power to do that?" And we see Jericho is there, and he's like, "I did it, Dad. It's me." And a shadowy figure from behind says, "You owe your son your life." And turns out it's Ra's al Ghul. And he's like, "Yeah, we got a lot to talk about." I hope that this storyline continues. Like, I hope we continue fighting against Lawman and stuff, and we haven't just, like, completely left that behind, because that's the most nothing ending I've ever heard in my life. Like, that is like the, "Oh no, where'd they go? They just walked away. Oh well, on to Ra's al Ghul now." Yeah, no, this is issue 17. I think this goes up to issue 20, and there might be an annual in there as well, so there's a lot still to come. But yeah, it's not a bad issue. It's just a long fight scene. Like, you know, every once in a while the comic is just an extended fight scene. That's fine. It works out for what it is. But the ending of that just feels like, oh, and now for something completely different. So, I mean, the arc itself was kind of weak up until now. Introducing Ra's is interesting. Although, am I misremembering? No, he was brought back. Yeah, for some reason I thought Ra's al Ghul was like dead. Like they had done a thing where like, oh no, he's actually gone. But no, they brought him back around the time that Damian was doing his stuff. So yeah, no, never mind. Beyond that, I feel like a 7 is fair. It's good. It's not great. It's just a long action fight scene. If that's your thing, if you like seeing a bunch of like stabs through the chest, because there's at least 3 of those here, it's fine. It's a fine enough read, but it's not forwarding the story in any massively incredible ways either. We Are Robin, number 11, written by Lee Bermejo, art by Jorge Corona and Rob Haynes. So, last issue, they did a big old promise of the Joker's gang and Smiley and all of him have made their way into the local high school with a bunch of guns, and bad things were promised. So we open up this issue with possibly the biggest reveal of this whole book, which is the character of Dax is at his home. His mom is there and notices the grappling guns and is like, "Hey, what are these? These look like guns." And he's like, "No, Mom, they're for climbing." And she's like, "Okay, well, you remember what we said, what we promised each other since that night." And he says, "I know, Mom, I know. We made the promise. No chill is ever going to fire a gun ever again." The reveal being is that Dax is a relative, possibly son of Joe Chill, the murderer of Batman's parents. This isn't all coming together for you here. I can spell it out more. Doesn't really mean anything for the moment. Just an interesting reveal. Meanwhile, over at the school, yeah, they start firing. They're firing into the air. You see students go running in every direction. It's this whole thing. Duke and Rico are stuck in the middle of a hallway as they're approaching down. And Duke is like, "Hey, we got to go. We got to take them out." And Rico's like, "You're not going to do anything against all of them. They'll mow you down. We got to come up with a plan." And so they duck into the girls' bathroom. We see that Smiley sends one of them to go take out anyone who's hiding in the bathroom. So that's on the table there. Izzy overslept, apparently. She's trying to make her way to school. She knows she's on thin ice with principals and all that of showing up late. So she's already upset about that, but then she gets the text from Dax saying, "Hey, there's a shooting going on. We need, like, you got to help us, please. Like, 911, something's happening here." Over in the girls' bathroom, we see there are already some girls hiding there. Rico passes them a taser and just like, "Look, use it if you need it, but otherwise, like, stay safe, whatever else." And she pushes them back into the stall as the one guy comes in. He's just thrown out a bunch of like, "Ooh, ooh, look out, coming through, doing all this. And he's got a gun loaded. He shoots at Duke and Rico as they go jumping into a stall. As he makes his way down closer to them, the girls in the first stall pop out, end up tasing him and taking him out. And she's like, all right, cool. This must be what it's like to have a sidekick. Fantastic. So we then see there's also a narration throughout this bit of, I believe it's Alfred, who of course is the Nest or whatever it's called here, and he's just quoting Dark Knight Returns. He's like, guns are the weapon of the enemy, they are for the weak, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. So basically just saying how awful it is that they're using these guns. We see that they make their way into the main auditorium, the gym, and Smiley is just there making jokes. He's just like, oh yeah, this one's gonna be a real slaughter. And one of the administrators comes up and says, hey, Johnny Bender, you don't have to do this. Like, this is insanity. Put down the guns. And he tries calling him out, and like Smiley just makes more jokes, keeps on doing whatever, gets right up in his face, holds the gun up to it, and just like, all right, so we're going to be going upstairs to the principal's office. A bunch of you guys stay down here and keep an eye on everyone else in the gym. So they do that. We see that it's not Dax. What's his name? I can never remember his name. The one who's going off doing his own vigilante stuff. He is snuck into the middle of the Joker's crowd, so he's managing to follow upstairs and seeing what's going on. We see that Duke and Rico also see them going upstairs and points out how the administrative offices up on like the third floor or whatever are significantly harder for cops to get to, so it's actually pretty smart on his part what he's doing. And meanwhile, Rico, she's on Twitter. She sees she gets a message from Dax saying that he's on his way, but also it's exploded outside of their circle. It's on Twitter. Everyone knows there's a school shooting going on, and everyone's reacting crazily. It's just like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? Because it's now hit the main news, Alfred knows about it. He calls in over the text messages that he's been sending them and basically straight up says, do not do anything. I know you want to be heroes. I know you want to help save the day. You are not capable of dealing with this, and anything you do is going to put you or your fellow students at risk. Do not be a hero here. So down on the ground, we see the cops have already arrived. Smiley is just telling people like, oh yeah, like, come and get us, coppers. What are you supposed to do? And he's cracking jokes down to them, smashing windows, doing all this stuff. Meanwhile, as the ones out in the auditorium are looking at this stuff, we see, God, I can never remember his name. I'm never going to remember it. The other guy, the vigilante one, he manages to punch one of the Jokers enough that it causes his gun to go sliding, which causes all the other people in the auditorium to have a moment of, hey, there, now jump them. And they jump and start taking out the other Jokers, guys. So they're now all technically safe. The only problem are Smiley and them with the principal up in the office. So outside the office, SWAT's loading up, doing a whole thing. They're making their way in. Duke and Rico make their way upstairs towards the principal's office. Dre, that's his name. It's Dre. Dre and Duke meet up, and he's like, hey, you up? You ready to do this? So they bury the hatchet. They're good to go. And we see that outside of the building, trying to get in, is Izzy and Dax. They've each got grappling guns. He passes one over to her, and they're getting ready to fire them so that they can help join in on the building. Up in the office, the other Jokers are getting scared, except for Smiley. They're like, hey, we're surrounded by cops. How are we supposed to get out of here? Like, we're totally screwed. And he's just like, you idiots. We'll just go down, we'll wipe off the makeup and blend into the crowd. By the time that the cops have any idea to check the crowds, we'll be long gone. Like, it's not going to be a problem. However, none of that gets to fruition because we see Rico, Duke, and Dre come in. They start throwing down like mace and whatever makeshift weapons they have to attack the Joker's gang and start taking them all out. In the middle of it all, Smiley takes some shots. With the shots being fired, the SWAT says they're ready to move in. Izzy and Dax manage to swing their way over, and finally we get a confrontation just between Smiley and Duke. And Smiley is like, oh man, you must have some brain damage if you think you can take me out. And we see that Dax and Izzy swinging in, smash the window, which gives Duke just enough of a distraction window to punch Smiley in the face, take away his gun, and they're completely successful. They've taken out all of the Jokers. And the principal is like, oh my, who are you kids? And they're like, oh, we're the children of Gotham, sir. So SWAT comes in. They're ready to start firing. Principal managed to talk him down, saying, hey, these are the good kids. They're doing fine. They're the ones who saved us. Everything's good. So news reports saying, luckily, little to no casualties. Not a lot going on there. Smiley's been arrested. He's going to be going to prison for murdering his parents and all this, obviously. And nobody quite got a good look at the kids who saved the day. Some were claiming that they were Robins. Some were claiming that they were just kids trying to do the right thing. But regardless, the nightmare is over. And we see that eventually, as they leave the school, they meet up with Alfred, who's in disguise. And he's like, I thought I told you guys not to get involved. I thought that my warning fell on deaf ears. And he's like, yeah, we're listening, but we're listening to ourselves now. Like, we appreciate your help. You did a lot for us to get us off the ground, but we aren't alone. We've got this. We're going to do things our way. And Alfred's like, well, what way is that? And he's like, we're just dying to find out. And that's theoretically, I guess, the end of the arc. There is one more issue, which I'm sure will be an epilogue. It's good. It's a good issue. I don't want to downplay that. I think that it does a good job, especially with the over narration of Alfred the whole time saying, you know, guns are for the weak and all that sort of stuff. This book has been very good with social issues in a lot of ways. It's been very good at playing that up. I kind of wish it would have just played up the terror of it, you know? The idea of, like, this is absolutely horrifying. And, like, people will be, like, the people that you think would be making all the right decisions or what else are the ones that have no idea what to do, and like they're terrified just as much as anyone else. And that's where the Robins shine, that they stand up, they are able to make those choices, and they do come through here. Like, I think the biggest fault that I have here is the principal being so capable, you know, like, good on him that he is at, like, if he was a person, absolutely adulations. But I feel like this is a moment where it should be showing just how much the Robins are able to be those heroic characters because they stand out from the rest. Here, I don't feel like we never get a spotlight on the rest of the human body, so it doesn't feel like that terror is really there. It's just something for the Robins to overcome. And that's the only letdown. Like, otherwise, it's a great issue. I just feel like they could have gone so much stronger with it and really made it like something special. As it stands, it still is like a 7.5. It's still good, but I think this could have been like a really great and grounding issue of like, no, like, we're not downplaying the seriousness of this by saying like a bunch of teenagers with attitude can solve it, but we're also not treating it like it's just something for them to solve either, you know? Like, we're making this something more than that. So, yeah, 7.5. Teen Titans number 19, written by Greg Pak, art by Ian Churchill and Alvaro Martinez Bueno. So, yeah, last issue we got Wonder Woman involved with Wonder Girl and Cassandra. I know that Wonder Girl's name is Cassandra. If you haven't been following the arc, it's not going to make any sense, but we're just picking up off of some Brian Azzarello run stuff, and we see that, yeah, Wonder Woman said last issue that Cassie was her niece, and Cassie opens up this issue with like, oh my god, we're family, it's a whole thing. Wonder Woman then steps up saying like, hey, yeah, look, your father was my half-brother and all that. I'm not sure you should be hanging with your Aunt Cassandra, though. Like, she's kind of got problems. And Cassandra's like, no, you roped me with your lasso. I'm telling the truth. I'm here to help the girl. That is the absolute truth. And the two of us can help her live life as a goddess. And all the Teen Titans standing by are like, I don't even think we're really part of this story. This is kind of all just Cassie's thing. I'm not sure how we're really going to fit into this at all. So then Cassandra steps up and just like, no, kids, you're all important as well, because the rod of Acephalus or whatever, it fell down into that chasm. We're going to need all of your powers to go down and get it. We're going to need to recover it so that we can bring Lennox back to life. So at that point, Wonder Woman's like, now hold on. The rod was hidden for a reason. And if I know one thing about stealing the god's power, it doesn't end well for the person doing the stealing. So yeah, we probably shouldn't do that. And Cassandra calls out like, okay, well, here's a counterpoint. Screw Apollo and whatever he wants. Just because he's insecure doesn't mean we should listen to that. But Wonder Woman points it out, saying like, look, Cassandra, you keep on saying that we're gods, and you keep on pointing out that we're demigods. And again, in the stories, demigods do not quite get the same leeway as gods do. That's kind of important. Also, you had the power to make people do whatever with your voice, and that kind of made you go crazy. So yeah, we might want to view this with a little bit of finesse. So Wonder Woman picks up the head of Lennox, passes over to Cassie, and says, look, I'm going to go get the rod, and then we will return it to Apollo. We're not going to use it directly to bring back Lennox. Maybe we can convince him to do something with it. But the Cassandra says, nope, I don't think so. And it seems like she still is just trying to bring back Lennox. That seems to be a thing. But she's, now attacking Wonder Woman, which seems like a bad move in the general sight. So the rod, they bump into it. It continues to fall further. And they both look up at Cassie and say, get the rod, do it, go get it. So she starts going down. She dives down to do it. All the other Teen Titans jump in. They're like, don't worry, we'll help you as well. And they grab Lennox's head. Bunker makes a pathway that stops it from falling, causes it to bounce, and then Red Robin comes in for the save. So they land at the bottom of this lava-filled chasm where there just happens to be some rocks, and they sit up and stand, and it's like, okay, well, here's your dad's head. Are we going to bring him back? And Raven's like, Wonder Girl, just so you're aware, so we have a clock on this. Because it got all bumped around, it's losing energy fast. There's something that you're going to have to make a decision quickly here. However, they then start doing this back and forth, where Raven's like, but you shouldn't steal magic. That's a bad thing to do. It only results in bad things. And Bunker's like, yeah, it kind of feels like the wrong thing to do. Power Girl goes, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as magic. It's all just science we can't understand. Go for it. Nothing bad could possibly happen. And Red Robin's like, this rod is a tool. Cassie, you can make whatever decision you want. And they start talking about, does this fall under the purview of gods? Is this something that man should have control over? And Beast Boy, who started this whole thing, is like, I was more so just saying Cassie should decide. I don't think this is really a team effort thing. And Cassie's like, okay, well, I started this whole thing because I didn't know who I was, but now I know I come from a family of gods. But at the same time, I have all this baggage and trauma because my dad disappeared, and now here he is. I can bring him back. I don't know. There's a lot going on here, and he always said that he would explain everything to me one day. And Tim's like, look, you've got everything you need right here, right now. I don't think you need anything more than that. And then he follows up with but I'm not sure that your dad can't offer more. It's entirely possible. So she steps up. She's about to start using it, but she doesn't realize how to use it. She has no idea what's going on. So then Cassandra comes up out of nowhere and is like, hey, give it to me. If you've made up your mind, I'll do it. I'll bring him back for you. I can do it. And she passes the rod over, and everyone's like, hold on, is that a good idea? And she starts lighting it up. She starts doing whatever. And then Wonder Woman busts out of a wall, punching one of the hyena men, and is like, don't let her have the rod. But it's too late. She commands the rod to heal her voice, which it does. And then immediately she turns to everyone and says, freeze. And they all stop. And Wonder Woman's like, hold on. I used the lasso of truth on you. How did you manage to get away with that? And Cassandra explains that just before Lennox came and ripped out her throat, she realized that she had gone too far and that Lennox was going to punish her for it. So she looked at herself in the mirror and gave herself the command of always find a way to win, no matter what. And so because of that command, she somehow managed to physically trick herself into believing that she was there to help Cassie. And it was only when she got her hands on the rod that her mind allowed her to remember the real truth. And there's this page where she's crying. She's got tears coming out of her eyes, but she's just absolutely crazy eye looking. And she's like, yes, I did all those things. I helped the firstborn slaughter the god. I skewered Amazons in the streets. I ate the entrails of Cronus, all just to get to this point, just to be able to get my voice back. This is what it was all coming to. Ha 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 ha. So Wonder Woman's like, look, if you believed that, if you believed that you were truly trying to help, you can do that again. You can believe that again. It's be who you are. That's what you can do. And she turns over to Lennox's head with the rod and just like, maybe I should bring her back to life. Maybe I should bring him back just so you can see your daughter and all of her friends die for their sins. And that's where Tim turns to Bunker and is just like, hey, Bunker, you doing the thing? And he's like, yeah, don't worry, I'm doing the thing. So she yells out the command, die. which I guess would make all their heads explode. However, Bunker has caused a bunch of itty-bitty little psychic bricks to go into the ear canals of everyone on their side. The hyena men's head explodes, which is why I know the head exploding thing. However, because they cannot hear the command, they cannot follow it, and therefore, for whatever reason, and that's the other thing, only one command can be given at a time, and because she gave a new command, it wiped out the old one, even if they couldn't hear the new one. Sure, which means that basically they're able to move. And Cassie, now in her full, silent armor setup, walks up with the spiky arm plates and just slits her aunt's throat. Just blood everywhere. And Wonder Woman's like, oh my god, Jesus. So as that happens, she picks up the rod. It's almost out of power. And Raven comes up being like, hey, it's got enough power to bring back your father. You can do that. But instead, she turns to Cassandra and says, fix her throat, but not her voice. And she stops bleeding out. The rod disintegrates into nothing. And Wonder Woman's like, you did the right thing today. And Cassie just cries and screams out into the heavens with how frustrated she is. So 2 hours pass. We see that they managed to hack Cassandra's ship, bring it down, uses it as transport. They're like, hey, are you sure she's safe to be in prison if she's got the powers of a demigod? And Wonder Woman's like, oh, don't worry. We're not taking her into normal prison. I'm going to bring her to Olympus, and she's going to face whatever punishment they think of. If she wants to act like a god, she can take punishment like a god. And then she turns to Cassie and is like, look, you made a really hard choice out there, but you did the right thing. You can come with me. I'll introduce you to people up in Olympus. We can figure out who you really are. And she's like, wow, that's awesome. But no, I think I'm going to stay with my chosen family, the Teen Titans. And Wonder Woman goes, that's another great decision, because the Olympus people suck. They're all just like this. So as he's walking away, I can't tell if it's telepathy or just the inner thoughts of Cassandra, but she's like, oh, you took my voice, but I already told you everything you needed to hear. I planted the seed of showing you who I am and what you will one day become. We'll see how it grows. Sure. It's okay. It's a fine arc. I'm not opposed to it. It's weird to get it as a follow-up to Azzarello's run. I think I said this already, but it's such a strange placement for it because, yes, it makes sense. It was already set up, I believe, in the Wonder Woman run itself that Cassie was the daughter of Lennox. And I love that internet continuity stuff there, but it's been so long since the Azzarello run, you just kind of think, oh, well, I guess we'll just never get a follow-up. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, no, here you go. And to be fair, they didn't explicitly say Lennox was not able to be revived. They just didn't use the power to revive him right then. So maybe he'll come back eventually. No, he won't. But he could. Yeah, I'm going to say this is I'll give it a 7.5. It's not quite at the 8 for me, but it is good. I think it is a decently well-written issue. The only thing I'll say is a little bit of a deus ex is the fact of I commanded myself to forget or trick myself into believing this was always true. And it's like, okay, well, now you're just being silly. But silly's okay occasionally. It's perfectly fine here. Secret 6, number 13, written by Gail Simone, art by Tom Derenick. So last issue, we had Strix was taken by the League of Assassins, specifically Lady Shiva, who, just said hey, come with me or we're going to, kill all your friends. And she's like, yeah, I'll go, whatever. So they arrive at a headquarters, which is, it's a high-rise building somewhere on a coast. It's not secretive, but she says, oh, yeah, people think we're from a different time, a different era, but yeah, we're pretty modern. We keep up with things. As they arrive, there's a champagne bottle and just yes, this is a tiny little vineyard that we've specifically rented out for the past 10 generations. Only the Vatican can get this as well. And Strix takes a sip of it and just hates it, thinks it's poison. And Shiva's like, all right, well, we'll work on your palate as well, whatever, no big deal. By the way, it's breakfast time. What would you like for breakfast? And Strix writes down that Catman always makes eggs, to which point Strix is like, ooh, yeah, about that. We really need to strip you of all sense of family, and you brought along a garden gnome, so I'm sorry that we have to do this. And she holds Strix like back as they take her garden gnome and throw it off the edge of this building. And she was like, I know you see me as the bad guy now, but trust me, this is necessary. We will be your family from now on. Like, forgive me. And Strix just breaks down and starts crying. We then cut back over to the Secret Six as, the other big reveal last issue is that Big Shot has now returned to his identity as Dibney and the elongated man, and is like, yeah, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do. So Dibney's making a barbecue, doing a whole thing there, like enjoying some time with his wife, and they're just like, hey, but didn't we agree we need to go get Strix, we need to do that. And he points out, like, yes, but like this isn't the easiest thing. Like, this is going to be extremely difficult to do. And they start talking about like, what are we going to have to do, and is it worth it? And everyone's just like, of course it is. She's one of us. We can't just let her have her. And it seems that Ferdy, the marionette puppet doll thing, is specifically very much of just like, yeah, let's do it. Like, she's our friend. Let's go out and get her. So as they're thinking about how to do it, we see that a bunch of cops that were shot and like attacked by Shiva in the last couple issues, they walk in, and immediately Catman's like, oh, you're that crooked cop whose dog I'm taking care of, all that sort of stuff. And he walks over to the dog just like, yeah, well, I wasn't a very good for that dog or whatever. You say I'm corrupt. I say I'm useful. I know how to get you in touch with the League, and I'm willing to tell you for nothing, just because she beat up my guys, and we don't take that lying down. So at that point, Catman's like, all right, well, yeah, cool. Like, we'll go ahead and do it. And it seems like the cop is also on their side of like, yeah, you saved that poor kid from those colossal buttholes. Got it? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And all of a sudden, then Catman gets a call. And if you remember the previous issue, it's from Scandal Savage, who is lying in bed with her wives and saying, hey, Catman, we've decided to start a family, and we want you to be the donor. And he's like, you know I'm not a good guy, right? And she's like, this series begs to differ. You're a pretty good guy. So, yeah, we want you to be. And he's like, yeah, I'm honored. Absolutely. I will totally be your donor. Thank you. Actually, I do have one small favor to ask in return. So we cut back over to Shiva, who's welcoming Strix into the room, asking if there's anything else she needs, and saying like, oh yeah, you get to sleep in this wonderful penthouse. I heard you were sleeping in a treehouse before. That must have been awfully cramped. And she writes out like, I like the treehouse. And she was like, okay, this notepad thing needs to stop. Here's a tablet. You can just type in the letters and it'll say it out loud, so you can actually have a voice. Wouldn't that be neat? And so she types it, and she's like, thank you, sister. I'm sure it sounds more naturalistic than that, but as Shiva walks away, says like, oh yes, take a moment to rest. Your trial for League membership begins in 15 minutes. And she just types in, I am Strix, and repeats it over and over and over again. As Shiva leaves, we see that she goes down the hall, and she's like, look, Strix is still hanging on to the previous family she had. We got to strip her of that. So all of the members of the League of Assassins she's about to fight are specifically made up to look like the Secret Six. And they each have very similar powers, I assume, or at least can do something similar. So Scandal gets up out of bed, tells her wives, like, hey, I got to make some calls to some other people. Catman needs us to go help out. And she slips on her giant claw glove things. We see that the rest of the Secret Six are all getting ready, but Elongated Man says, like, look, just one last time before anything else, all of you need to think it over. Are you sure you want to do this? There is no chance, or there's not an unreasonable chance that you will die there. And no shame in walking away from that. And Porcelain's like, look, she was my friend. She was my sister. No way I'm going to dishonor that. She stands up, says yes. And everyone else is implied to go along as well. We then see that I assume the one representing Porcelain comes in, got a big mallet, and just like, look, there are 6 of us, each of us representing your former friends. You gotta kill us, because if you don't kill us within 1 minute, then we will put a hit out on our corresponding member of the Secret Six and we'll kill them. And Strix is like, don't do this, I don't want to kill you. And he's like, well, we'll see if you can. So immediately she's just trying to duck and dodge out of the fight. It doesn't seem like she's really trying to fight all that much. Shiva's watching on like, oh yeah, we'll see if she comes to learn this. And as soon as the guy lands one solid hit with his mallet on Strix's face, he immediately shits his pants and is just like, oh no, you have the eye of death. And Strix kicks the mallet up in the air and then flips the guy over so that he lands immediately under where the mallet's going to land, and his head just gets crushed. So Strix aims at the camera, holds up the one finger, and then the next two come in for Black Alice and Big Shot. Immediately, the Strix gets on the back foot. It looks like she's about to be attacked, but then she headbutts Big Shot, manages to throw him in the way of Black Alice's throwing knives, which I guess is just the League of Assassins version, and then impales them both on the same knife. We then see Ferdy and Ventriloquist are looking at the house before they hop in the van, and it seems like Ferdy's ready to go. Just like, yeah, everything's good. Like, we got to go for Strix because I relate to her. She doesn't have a voice unless someone else lets her talk. Like, it's a whole thing. And then Black Alice is comforting Ventriloquist saying, hey, you know, I've been thinking about death. Maybe it's not all that scary in the end. You know, maybe it's not that bad. And Purdy's like, hey, it's no big deal. Me and Shauna, like, we'll be fine. We're going to go get the kid back, right? We're going to be back, right, Shauna? And Shauna's like, you know, Ferdy, I've always loved you. I hope you know that. And he's like, oh, well, that's not a good sign. So they send in the last three members of the squad. It's Catman, Ventriloquist, and Ferdy. And immediately Shiva's just like, I've got this urge. I want to fight her as well. Let's see how good she can hold up. And as soon as they open the door, like all three of them have been brutally murdered. Just like horrible looking deaths. And Strix is standing there just dripping with blood, holds up 6 fingers. And Shiva's like, well, congratulations. You passed. You're part of the League of Assassins now. So that's that. Next issue, I'm sure, is the breakout issue, and we'll see how that all wraps up. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a solid issue. It's fine for what it is. It does feel a little bit like padding. It doesn't feel like it is a complete story in its own right, because on the Secret Six side, it comes down to a little bit of planning, but mostly just the reassurances of course, we're going to risk ourselves to go save Strix, which, I don't know, it's just like really, really similar to the same exact stuff they did for Black Alice. The idea of like, yeah, any one of us gets in trouble, we're all going to do it. Like, it's not that different where I feel like it needs that much of a focus this time around. And then the Strix joining the League stuff, that stuff felt genuinely good. Don't have a problem with that. So I think this is a 7. This is good, not great. It's just solid issue, and I'm looking forward to seeing if the ending can land it, because frankly, previous arcs have let me down before, but I think Gail Simone is a competent enough writer that it can really hit something poignant here of like family in the end. So we'll see what we get. Harley Quinn number 27, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by John Timms. So last issue we got introduced to the character of Red Tool. It's Deadpool. That's what he is. The entire bit of it was that he challenged Harley to a roller derby off that's like highly brutal or whatever, and it's got this massive cash cow prize attached to it. So yeah, they started off and they get in there, and there's 60 grand that they're looking for here. They establish the rules, which is basically just no weapons to start with. They go about 1 lap, and then there's a barrel of weapons that they can pull from. And again, I established this last issue, but I'm just going to say it again here for his full appearance. All of Red Tool's speech bubbles are tool-shaped. They are saw blades. They are hammers. They are screws. They are wildly distracting. I don't understand why they are doing this, but regardless, as they're going about their first lap, they try doing some trash talk, and literally Deadpool is switching panel to panel on whether or not he admires Harley, whether or not he's going to murder her here in the ring, whether or not they're going to date after this. And Harley's like, what is wrong with you, man? But regardless, the first lap ends. They pick up some weapons. They start chucking at each other and attacking each other. Red Tool gets first blood, quote unquote, by throwing a crowbar down at her skate. She trips as she's holding an axe, and not only does she land on some people, but the axe just lands in someone's head. As they get up, they make the comment of how this kid was the son of a mob boss, and he's like, it's okay, everyone signs a waiver at the door. You might end up decapitated in here, no problem. So she throws away one of her skates, is just skating on one. Red Tool comes back around, kicks her in the stomach. All the while, they're picking up more and more weapons and are causing them to go flying out towards the audience. And some of them barely miss our named characters. A lot more land in the unnamed characters. As they are moving through, we see Red Tool lands in the weapons box, which causes them to just skewer like half the audience. Like almost all of them are dead. And so Red Tool's like, well, that's my cue. And he clicks a little remote control button in his suit, which causes a whole bunch of gas, knockout gas, to come out of the walls and ceilings of this place, and everyone is just immediately knocked out. Red Tool's like, well, we're going to get some alone time later, sweet cheeks, but first I'm going to go do this thing over here. And we see that he has a whole bunch of targets out in the audience, and he's like, I'm going to be making a lot of money tonight. And we get a full page with so many speech bubbles of him just singing a song about how much he loves Harley Quinn as he goes through and seemingly kills a bunch of people, but also tattoos a bunch of people, which we'll get to later. Cut to the upper side of Manhattan, or the west side, the good side. We see that the police detective guy that we met up with last issue, who's a little bit corrupt, he's taking his wife out to dinner. The wife's like, oh, how could you afford such a swanky place? And he's like, you don't want to know. And she's like, no, tell me. And he explains how the maitre d's son was daughter was stuck in a thing where her boyfriend was murdered, and it looked like she may have done it, but it turns out that they actually just made a bong out of a shotgun and forgot to unload the shells. And so he helped clear her, but also keep her out of the public light. So he gets this free table here whenever he wants. But he is to depart dinner because he's getting a call from the mayor. And the mayor basically says, hey, yeah, the current chief of police had a heart attack while training with his hot Pilates instructor. So you're now the chief of police. We're having a conference tomorrow morning. And as he comes back in, he tells his wife, and she's like, oh, fantastic. By the way, I want a Tesla. So then we cut to a Ferris wheel out in Coney Island. Harley starts coming to. She is hands chained up to the top of the carriage that they're in. And Red Tool's like, yeah, sleeping gas. I put my plan into action, and now we're on our first date. And she's like, what? I just don't get handcuffed by anything but the third date. And he's like, well, fair enough. That's what we're doing. And immediately he offers her up a hot dog, and she sees that it's from this place that she absolutely loves, and he's like, yeah, I've done my research, I know what you like, and all the stuff that you love eating and whatever else. So he helps feed it to her. It's all of her favorite snacks. She's having a great time. Meanwhile, down at the roller rink, everyone else starts coming to, and we see that our named characters, the people who are on Harley's skate team, they're all fine. A bunch of other people out in the crowd, though, they have tattoos on their forehead of, I guess, things that they've done, one of which says thief, the other which says whore, one says greed. Sure, I guess it's part of the contract. So they're like, hey, we should check up on Harley. And they call her up. Red Tool answers. He's like, yeah, she's right here. Hey, Harley, tell him that you're okay. And Harley's got a mouthful of hot dogs. She's like, yeah, I'm okay. Everything's good. So at that point, she, hangs up. They're talking once again. And Harley's like, so what's up? What's all this for? Like, you went through a lot of trouble for all this. What's going on? And he basically starts giving a little bit of his backstory, saying like, look, we both have a certain extreme hatred for a certain kind of miscreant out there. And, I was happiest when I was helping people out in the middle of a conflict because I was out in battle, yada, yada, yada. And, I see you doing things to better your community, and I got a little bit of a crush on you from that. So, yeah. Plus, you would never give me the time of day unless I did something extravagant like this. And she's like, that's a stupid plan. That's really dumb. But, like, has this ever worked before? And he's like, oh, check this out. Like, I want to show you my backstory. I hand animated it and everything. He pulls out his phone, and it's like, the secret origin of Red Tool. There was a soldier who fought for truth, justice, and the American way. And then his phone dies, and she just cracks up laughing at how stupid that was. So Red Tool has to give the shortened version, which is like, yeah, I was a hero in the war. I lost an arm. I got it replaced full of experimental drugs, and I got brain surgery. All of a sudden, I couldn't feel pain anymore, so I became this costumed person named Red Tool, and now I stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. And Harley's like, you should have waited till your phone was charged, because that's the lamest backstory I've ever heard. And he's like, I know, right? I had a cool animation and everything. So Harley's like, look, I'm giving you one more chance to take these cuffs off me before things are going to get bad. What do you say? And he looks down over the edge of the carriage and just like, well, the ride operator apparently took a potty break for like 45 minutes, so we're going to have to wait for him to get cycled around. And Harley takes the opportunity to kick Red Tool out of the carriage from the very top of the carousel, and he falls down to the ground, luckily right onto a guy who was mugging two other random people. So she somehow managed to get the key from him before all that happened. She uncuffs herself, but she's like, oh, geez, but I'm still way too high up. I guess I gotta wait until we get down. 45 minutes pass. Eventually she's cycled down as they're hosing off the circus, the Ferris wheel, and she's like, oh, geez, this sucks. I hate it. I'm going home. So as she makes her way back home, she meets up with the roller derby team. They were waiting outside her place, like, what happened to you? Like, you're soaking wet. What's happening? And she's like, oh, it's a whole thing. Like, what happened down at the roller rink? Is everyone okay? And it's like, yeah, a bunch of people got tattoos on their forehead, so that was weird. But beyond that, and Harley invites them all in to have some food. But as she's sitting there eating, she's like, oh my God, my ass is killing me. And I don't know why. Can you guys tell me, is it bruised or something? And so she takes off her pants, and they look at her ass and see that there is a phone number tattooed on her butt, along with an image of a Red Tool. And Harley's like, you got to be kidding me. So she calls the phone number. It's a recorded message that says, hey, I see you found the phone number I left you. Come meet me at this address at 3 o'clock today. I look forward to seeing you. And Harley's like, oh, he's giving me exactly where he is. He's giving me all the time to prep. He's a dead man. I'm absolutely going to take my time getting rid of him. We get an extended joke on how one of the roller derby girls is just chilling at Harley's place and is grooming her beaver. And then we see that she hops in a cab and heads out to this other place. So as she gets up, turns out it's a cathedral. It is a church. And as she walks inside, Red Tool has a captive audience and a priest and is like, hey, Harley, you're just in time to read your vows. What are we doing? Why are we put here? Just to suffer? Look, it wasn't that bad of an issue. I've read much more infuriating issues of Harley Quinn. This is not that bad of one. But it does feel so superfluous. It does feel so much like, oh no, God, like, how do I put this? All of the Harley Quinn issues prior to this point had this flow. It had this thing where we'd be handling two plots simultaneously. And one of them would just be ending while the other one is just starting. And you'd constantly have this flow where it never felt like it was really breaking the story because it was always moving on to the next thing. This feels like a hard stop. This feels like, no, we are so dead set on the idea of Red Tool that we are going to stop everything else just to tell this story. And frankly, it's a dumb idea. It is a parody. You just made a parody character. Congratulations. You really want to devote an entire issue to saying, like, and it's not even like that deep of a parody character, because it's not like he's breaking the fourth wall like Harley does. It's not like he's doing anything specifically Deadpool-esque. It's just harping on the idea of, yeah, Deadpool and Harley are kind of similar, but from opposite companies. Tahi. I didn't enjoy myself, is the long way of saying that. Yeah, I can recognize this for some people. Frankly, I don't get it. I'm giving this one like a 5.5. I'm not having a good time. I can recognize the art looks good. The writing itself seems competent, but like the overall issue as a whole, I can't get behind. So yeah, 5.5. Justice League 3001, number 11, written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, art by Scott Collins. So last issue, we got reintroduced to Larfleeze being around, and he's the leader of a scavenger group that goes to planets that Lady Styx has annihilated and picks up all the scraps. So as Supergirl, Fire Ice, and Nort are there talking to Larfleeze, he's like, oh, Larfleeze will smite you where you stand, and blah, blah, blah. And they basically call him out saying like, hey, Larfleeze, you what are you doing? You're just a garbage collector for Lady Styx. Like, you're not this grand, powerful king. He's like, how dare you? I'm the greatest of all time. I'm doing my stuff, and if you interfere, Larfleeze will smite you. And it's like, yeah, the smiting thing. Why does he keep coming back to that? Nort's like, he's like millions of years old. His memory is not as good as it used to be. Like, just let him have this. So yeah, they just keep on calling him out. They're just saying like, you've enslaved all these scavengers, like there are dead bodies everywhere you're just trampling over. And he's like, yes, and the dead bodies are mine. Larfleeze's stuff is my stuff, and the scavengers are grateful for their ability to serve Larfleeze, and if you try to take them away, Larfleeze will smite you. Yeah, the smiting, okay, we get it, thank you. So yeah, as he just stands out, he's just pimping his own stuff, doing whatever, until Ice basically says, you know, Larfleeze, you are the great and powerful Agent Orange. You wield a power ring. No one could possibly fight against you. And I know the loneliness of eternal life that you have. It's you know, that's something why you're probably trying to fill that void that the loneliness has with all this stuff. And it's like, and also he's very, very greedy. And Ice basically says, so I wonder, Larfleeze, why do you let Lady Styx have all of the best stuff? And he's like, what? And it's like, yeah, Lady Styx, you're just getting her scraps. She's the one who has all the best stuff that you're not allowed to have. And Larfleeze is like, you're right, Lady Styx, it's been far too long I've been letting her have what she has. It must be mine now, but to do that, I need more power. And we get a cut to Guy Gardner, who's like, I just felt a shiver move through the emotional spectrum. Something is very wrong. We then cut over to Wonder Woman, Batgirl, and Flash as they escaped Convert in the previous issue. And Batgirl's just like, I don't trust any of you aren't Convert. Like, we just saw Wonder Woman was possessed, and now whatever she suggests is immediately suspect. And Wonder Woman's like, I think we should go back and we should talk to our friends about this, because this is clearly something big that needs helping. And she's like, see, you want to reveal where our secret base is. And Wonder Woman just like smashes a pylon with her bare fist and just like, shut up. Shut up, we gotta deal with this. There's too much fear and paranoia. We can't let him win over us. We can't let Convert get this from us. And then Flash points out, like, yeah, and plus all of the Scullions are still flying nearby, and they see us now, but they're not attacking. Like, it must have been true, the part of the plan that he mentioned, where, like, we're not allowed to die yet because we're part of a larger plan. And as Batgirl's still trying to make some arguments, they're just like, how do we know you're not one of conversing? And she's like, fair point. Guess I can't. Oh, well, let's go through. So they go back to their home base, and we see someone from the Legion of Doom is watching them go through. And it's like, oh, yes, they're going back to their hidden sanctuary, which we've already known about for months. How long are we going to sit around and wait? And we see Eclipso is like, oh, you will await my orders. And then Lady Styx steps in and be like, what about my orders, bitch? I'm the one who owns you. And he's like, oh, yeah, of course. What do I owe the honor? And it's like, I'm not honoring you. You suck. I'm the one who made you. Why have you not destroyed the Justice League yet? I turned over my command in order to give you orders to do that. And he's like, oh, we'll have plenty of corpses when the time is right. And Lady Styx just calls out being like, are you delaying because you still have something in your brain about being the brother of Flash? Like, is that a thing here? And he's just like, no, screw that. She sucks. I don't want anything to do with her. And it's like, then go, do it, do whatever. But if you're going to kill the Justice League, you have to keep Flash alive, because she is far more powerful than you realize. I need her plans and brought to me. So they both kneel before her and do whatever. And as he's doing it, he's like, oh, I will do whatever you want, but why? And she's like, you dare question me? I could wipe you out of existence with a thought. And he's just like, all right, fair, fine enough. So we then go over to Larfleeze has been brought to the main base. Pretty much everyone's just sitting around the main base. And, God, this is annoying. Guy Gardner, who has been having this identity crisis with the person who previously inhabited his body, whose name is Shiryala Tome, she's now out. She's now the dominant personality, or at least they're switching back and forth rapidly. So Shiryala's like, what are you talking about, a ring? I don't have no ring. I'm sure y'all at home. What are you doing? And Larfleeze is just like, I need that power ring in order to take on Lady Styx. So give me Guy Gardner's power ring. And just like, and seemingly Guy takes back over for a second and leans into Ice, being like, what were you thinking? The ring is inside of me. I don't have the ability to take it off. And Ice is like, I don't know. I was improvising. We'll do whatever we can. So she turns back to Larfleeze and it's just like, Larfleeze, Lady Styx stole the power ring. And she's like, what? That bitch! How dare she? Well, I needed that ring in order to take down her, but now when she has it, how am I supposed to win? And Ice is like, oh, well, I think that your desire to get the ring will make you even more powerful than the having the ring itself. And Supergirl joins in saying like, yeah, right, all of her shiny whatsits and doohickeys to your collection. Just imagine adding that. And he's like, oh, yes, all mine. So Nord is just like, all right, look, and I'm old, I'm leaving, I'm stepping out. So he goes out on the grounds for a little bit. This is where he bumps into Wonder Woman, Batgirl, and Flash, and they're like, who the hell are you? What are you doing on our island? And Flash is just like, oh, wait, hold on. This is a previous Justice League member. His name is Nort. And this is like, you were on the Justice League? He's like, yep, the Antarctica branch. How's it going? And he says what brings him there, how Larfleeze is on the island and all this other stuff. And they start talking about the convert, and Nort's like, oh, yeah, he tried to convert me once, but my breath strayed him away. He ran away. And Batgirl's like, yeah, I get that. I can pick up on that. So as he's saying that Larfleeze is inside and they're doing their secret planning, all of a sudden, Eclipso and his Legion of Doom just show up. And they're like, haha, screw your plans. We're here now. We're going to fight. So Guy and Larfleeze, and it's now Guy actually, are getting in each other's faces on inside the building. Guy lands a solid punch on Larfleeze, and Ice is like, what are you doing? We brought him here. And he's like, oh, what? Seriously? And then all of a sudden there's a big shake vibration. Flash comes running in, speaking at super speed, and just like, Supergirl, you gotta come with us. Everything's going horrible out there. We gotta go now. And she's like, wait, hold on. She's like, no, time. You gotta come with us now. Boom. Zooms back outside. Larfleeze is like, did I miss something? What's going on? It's like, yeah, Lady Styx's men are outside and they're stealing all your stuff. And he's just like, no, not my stuff. So immediately he bolts outside. He's ready to start fighting. And a whole big thing fights out between all of them. Everyone's joining in. Batgirl's not immediately in the fight, but that's just because she's going to grab her bat suit. And when she comes in with her mech, she starts throwing down punches just as heavily as the rest. Eclipso gets a handle on Supergirl and just like, haha, you have Kryptonian strength, but I'm magic-based. Rock beats paper, bitch. Even though, the opposite way. And then Flash comes in to save the day. And she tackles Eclipso down the ground, just being like, oh, you come in here, you got all this melodrama going on, you're not a good villain. And he's just like, oh, yeah? Well, Terry, how can you say such a thing after all we've been through together? And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm your brother. And he's like, what, Terry? And as he's speaking, he's like, yes, Lady Styx brought me out of the darkness and gave me this immense power. And then his voice switches and he's like, Terry, you gotta help me. I'm stuck in here. I'm scared. It's dark. No, never mind that. I'm Eclipso. And then Wonder Woman comes in and just punches him straight up inside the jaw. So Terry is like, Wonder Woman, what are you doing? She's like, I'm protecting you. He's like, I don't need protection. We can talk about this later. So the fight continues on. Everyone's taking their own as best they can. But it is brutal. Sure, Yala takes back over a guy's body. Literally doesn't matter. But it does seem as though everything is going downhill for the Justice League team. They are on the back foot. And we see, according to the narration, oh, just remember the Flash belongs to me. And then cut over to the backup story from last time where Lois and Ariel were doing their thing on the other side of space. They're still being attacked here. The Scullions have found them and are turning on them. And as they are completely surrounded by Scullions, Lois says, we're totally screwed. And then it says, I just have to call out, it says, next time, the end of the Justice League, parentheses, that's not hyperbole, we've been canceled. Yeah, you have. It's a whatever issue. It doesn't feel too strong. It doesn't feel too weak. It's just fight scene and then like picking up threads from the previous stuff and then just a lot of Larfleeze. A lot of Larfleeze. So, I don't know. You heard the story. You can make your own judgments. There were jokes in there that I skipped over, but beyond that, you got it all. For me, it's like a 6. There are moments I enjoy. There's a bit of the character bits that actually work for me, but by far and away the weakest bits to me is whenever Keith Giffen feels this need to go back and just cover things from his other series and like make in-jokes about it, and this is one of them. This is just too much for me. So yeah, 6. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this April 27th, 2016. And with that, we move into the final month. Month number 52. We will be wrapping up God knows how many series. Not all of them. There are several series that do go past the May 25th cutoff date of the rest of the show. But yeah, we're in the end game. I don't know how many times I've said that over this show, but this is pretty definitive. Don't want to spend too much time on it now. I'll have plenty of things to say at the beginning of next week's episode, because next week we've only got 9 comics to talk about. It's very light, very fluffy. We will be getting into it. So in alphabetical order, the comics we'll be covering that week are Batman/Superman, continuing the Final Days of Superman arc, Batman Beyond, Bloodlines, Detective Comics, Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Midnighter, and New Suicide Squad. And out of those, I'm pretty sure Detective, Arrow, Lantern, and Midnighter are the only final issues, but, you know, like I said, some of them extend past the date. We will be covering all of them. We will be getting to the end of all of the series, so stay tuned for that. But if you have any comments on all the comics I've talked about this week, last week, any week at all, you can put them down in the comments section down beneath this YouTube video, if that happens to be the way you're watching it. If you're listening via the audio feed, my God, what are you doing? Who listens to podcasts anymore? Oh, it's sad, but it's true. Yeah, no, we also have a Discord and a Patreon and a subreddit. Go ahead and check all those out. Those are available probably in the show notes or whatever you weird-ass audio listeners do. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however you just consume this podcast, and be sure to tune in next week. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.